cracking, fam?
What's up? What's up?
What's good? Y'all ready? I'm ready.
That's
All
right.
right, yeah, my bad. What's going on, fellas? My mic was muted. Thank you, everybody, for joining in for another wonderful week of great conversation, great dialogue. We appreciate all the feedback so far. We did have a little meeting with ourselves because I understand that we are having you guys too late out here at night. I know you guys been hanging with us, so we're definitely tightening that up. It's going to be great. We're implementing some things back that we should have and we've gotten away from. So I just wanted to lay that out because next week is a definite, you'll definitely see the structure of the layout next week. So we'll make sure that we're more time savvy tonight versus what we were in the past. So just bear with us. Like I say, we get so much feedback. Everybody's enjoying it. The platform is growing. We're learning how to make sure that everybody can join us on this journey and not feel like they're being lost in the sauce. So with that being said, fellas, how y'all doing so far?
Good, man. Ready.
Yeah.
Feeling
And
great. Feeling good.
All
good,
right.
prosperous,
So
productive week.
So tonight's show is emotional maturity. I know a lot of people have hit me up and said they didn't really understand emotional maturity, which is good because the platform that we have created for you is for you to understand the different dynamics of social skills and also skills that will benefit you in relationships. Because this is Manversations. We're trying to overall collectively have a better relationship between man and women and men in society as a whole, making better men. And in the process of that, we're going to touch in different enclaves of situations and points of your life that we can make and transition you from okay to better or better to great. Everybody can take a page out of their own book and find areas in their lives that they can go and basically improve throughout yourself. Everybody is not exempt from self improvement. I try to make myself better every day. That's my goal every time I wake up. How do I make myself better than the previous day before? A lot of people have seen that improvement and have pointed that out. That's good because if they can recognize what I'm doing, that means it's showing, it's reflecting into the world. And that's what you want to do. You want to be a person that goes around and people say, yo, I see your growth. I see you changing. I see you prospering. That's always a great thing when you get other people to recognize it because you can have self gloat and you can also have self recognition, but it's better when other people tell you versus what you see because sometimes you might be so blinded by what you think that the reflection of what you give off is something totally different. So we want to make sure that everybody can look in the mirror and also what they see is also what they give off in the real world when you step outside your you step outside of your doors and enter the reality of the world. And when people come across you, they can say, "Yo, I feel your energy. I feel your glow." A lot of times when people say that, it's always in a great manner because if they don't feel your glow in a positive way, then they'll be, "Yeah, hold on, I'll be right back," and then you don't see them again because people run away from people with bad energy, bad persona, because if you're a person that wants to grow, you don't want to surround yourself with any of that. And they always say, surround yourself with people that you want to be like, or surround yourself with people that represent you. I remember my dad always told me from day one, he says, he said, tell me what you are. He said, tell me about yourself. I said, yeah, I'm this, I'm that, and that. He said, no, you want to tell me about yourself? Go get your friends. I'll tell you who you are based on who your friends are. And I never
ah,
understood that concept when my father was telling me. But as I grew older, we had that dialogue, and I appreciate him telling me that because he understands no matter how great of a man you are, if you're surrounded by a bunch of foolery and buffoons, you will be the buffoon as well. If
real
I'm
talk.
surrounded by a bunch of dudes who out here not doing their stuff, not stand up dudes, they got a bunch of children they don't take care of, and I am the opposite guy, guess what? I'm labeled as my friends. And if I'm not a person who is trying to make them better, if I'm not trying to escape from around them and surround fellow friends that are like me, then guess what? I'm an enabler. I'm just as
Yep.
bad as the guys that I'm surrounded by, right?
For
So
sure.
we got to make sure that your circle, when we talk about your circle, sometimes your circle, when people say their circles grow smaller, that means they're shedding a lot of the fat, meaning that unwasted meat in the potatoes of the bulk, right? So a lot of times people's circles get smaller when they start growing, when they start flourishing. And that's not something to hold your head down with. That's something you should take pride in because I rather 10 people that's great around me than have 100 people that ain't nothing and ain't shit to me. You know what I'm saying? It's not about the numbers, it's about the quality that you have that's surrounding you. Because those 10 people are going to be my fierce line of defense whenever I tackle anything. If I'm in a financial state of mind where I am basically not up to my financial par, I have 10 people around me that will be make sure that I'm financially straight until I get back on my feet. Versus 100 people that come to the table want to eat down everything, drink up all the, and when the bill comes, then everybody's scratching their head or playing like they got somewhere to go. There's a difference of the people you surround yourself with, so make sure you understand that. And that's what we do here on this platform is to strengthen you up better than you came in before this program was aired. So with that being said, I know Major, you had brought this particular topic up to your on the list of something you wanted to speak about. So I definitely want to turn it over to you, and you can basically explain to the people a little bit more on emotional maturity.
I mean, it's really a self-explanatory term. It's just that being emotionally mature, being an adult at all times, using critical thinking skills and not letting your emotions get the best of you. You know what I mean? Not overreacting. Remaining constant, remaining calm, thinking through matters. Bringing in counsel when need be. People who you're saying, you bring in counsel need to, and it's really about understanding yourself, keeping your emotions at bay, and really having control of your emotions overall. You know what I mean? We see examples every day of people who lack this, and it really comes out when there's some type of conflict. You know what I mean? You can tell who has emotional maturity best when there's something, whereas, conflict is being expressed, difference of opinion is being expressed. You know, the people who jump out the window and resort to sign language, you know what I mean? Those are the people who do not have emotional maturity, have not mastered emotional maturity. And, they often have, very troubled lives because of the fact that they're unable to control their emotions. Their emotions cause them to do irrational things that put them behind the eight ball. They put them in a situation where they're not going to thrive, or it's less likely that they'll thrive. It's less likely that they'll thrive because they have all these distractions that they don't know how to manage. You know what I mean? And so
Mhm.
it gets to the point where emotional maturity is an extraordinarily important thing if we're going to ever get to the place where we want to get as adults. If we want to accomplish our goals, every time something happens, you just kind of jump out the window. I was just watching the Sean Taylor story with my wife, and it's very tragic what happened with Sean. But when you
Mhm.
look back over his life, you could just tell, he's very emotionally immature, and he didn't have the proper balance, and it caused him to zig when he should have zagged a lot of times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we really have to be on top of these things, as far as self-governance and how we manage ourselves and how we comport ourselves, particularly when we're in a setting like I said, when there's conflict, when there's difference of opinion, when someone else is on the other side of how we feel, you know, we need to refrain from, you know, going to, oh, you hate me, or, you know, oh, you're this, or oh, you're that, calling people names and not addressing the situation. You know,
Correct.
people who are mature, they don't move that way. They get things solved, you know, and they're much more straight and narrow in the way that they move. So that was my thing with emotional maturity. We're severely lacking in that in the community, by the way.
Mm, okay.
Speaking.
Sure.
Definitely. So I definitely want to show everybody uh, the the definition through the Google, which is what is emotional maturity? Emotional maturity means having the self-control to manage your emotions and to work to understand them. As an emotionally mature individual, you don't view emotions as a weakness. Instead, you value them and don't try to hide them. So that's just the basic consensus of emotional
So
maturity. So there's different things that people can identify with emotional maturity and how to go about it. I definitely want to get Bobby Drake's opinion on, I want to say Bobby Drake's take on emotional maturity. What do you think emotional maturity is, and how do you feel like you come across it? What is the necessity of understanding emotional maturity, especially from a man dealing with a woman, or even emotional maturity with your own friends and family members? How important is that?
So I did take it upon myself to do some level of research at least because I definitely had my own understanding of emotional maturity. But then it dawned on me that I'm not the only person in the world. So maybe there's different thoughts, different trains of philosophy regarding this whole concept of emotional maturity. Because really, it's not a term I believe that's been around for very long. It's not like one of these old philosophies, or at least if it has been, it's only really recently, I'd say in the last decade, really come back into the speech and the lexicon and the understanding, where people were able to understand that this is a thing and it's something that needs to be worked on, developed, and honed and everything.
Mm,
So based on my research, I kind of didn't want to, because there's a huge tunnel you can go down. I mean, you could really get lost down that rabbit hole if you're not careful. So I just kind of read some different things, saw some different things, and kind of pieced here and there from what I saw. So the basics of what I saw was basically emotional maturity really boils down to what is your characteristic way of responding? What is your response? So,
mm,
like Major touched on, when things are less than 100% perfect, if there's any conflict, if there's any issue, any sort of disturbance in the force, so to speak,
yeah.
what is your habitual? Because, we're human beings at the end of the day. None of us are sages. None of us have perfect mastery of our emotions. So even the best of us, even the most emotionally mature of us, is going to have times and moments where we don't respond the way we should. But
Hmm.
overall, what is your habitual characteristic way of responding? If somebody had to go ahead and make a bet, put their mortgage, put their trust fund money, put their kids' college fund tuition, and bet on how you're going to respond,
yeah,
what would be the sound, safe, smart, high percentage bet?
Mm,
So typically, if you have low emotional maturity, a very low emotional maturity, what I was able to glean is you can basically sum it up in one of three things or more of those three things. So the first thing is going to be sulking. So that's basically, something goes wrong, someone says something you don't like, someone maybe they forget an anniversary, or they owe you something, they're supposed to do something, they promised they're going to do X, Y, Z, they didn't come through, they forgot or whatever. Instead of opening your mouth and talking to them and bringing it up to them, you're just going to sulk. Now, anytime you see them, you don't say anything. You just, hey, what's up? Like, what's wrong with you? Don't worry about it.
yeah,
What's the matter? No, 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 no. Why don't you go do that? Obviously, something is wrong, but they're not being an adult and communicating. So
mm,
instead, they want you to just be psychic. They want you to be Professor freaking Charles Xavier, the X Men, and just use your psychic powers to read their mind and see what's going on, and all this nonsense. And clearly, that's not the case.
mm,
Big indicator of emotional immaturity. The second indicator of the immaturity is becoming furious. So we're not talking about getting upset or getting mad or even getting angry. We're talking about getting extremely and most importantly, disproportionately angry.
mm,
So someone misses and bumps into you in line or something, regardless of whether they say I'm sorry or not, or maybe they don't even realize it. Instead of being like, "Hey man, can you watch where you're going?" It's more like, who the fuck? You think you could bump into me?" Like, damn, bro, just my bad. We swapped a couple skin sets. I didn't know it was that deep. My bad. But they just flying off the handle. They jumping out the window. They just on 10 or even 8 or 9, and it doesn't call for that. So, given the situation, they're angry and upset on a level that really isn't gelling with where they currently are. They're taking something to the next level and doesn't need to go there. And the third sign is just becoming cold and just basically shutting down, putting up indifference, putting up walls and barriers, really shutting themselves off from their emotions, not allowing themselves to feel because they don't want to be hurt. They don't want to be hurt again. Especially if they racked up damage and trauma over time, rather than opening themselves up and being vulnerable and allowing themselves to feel all the good and all the bad that comes with it, or basically allowing themselves to live because that's part of being human. It's experiencing these emotions. They just
mm,
shut and wall all that off.
mm,
On the flip side, the three indicators that I saw that indicate positive and strong emotional maturity is, and you'll see that these are probably counter to the three that I just named before. First is communication or your capacity to explain. So if there is an issue, there is something that's going on, if you feel a certain way, it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative, it's your ability to effectively communicate these things to the other person or other people. So rather than just having this thing sitting in your chest, you're not just saying, I feel this way, but you're able to get into it, elaborate, say why you feel the way, what happened. You're basically able to understand yourself in that regard. So that calls for not just being able to open your mouth and talk, but there's some awareness as well too. You're able to understand what you're feeling, get in touch with that, really dig deeper, and not just sit there with it, but actually be able to explore it a little bit and understand what you're feeling exactly, why you're feeling that way, what might have led up to that. If it's a trigger that you have, being able to maybe divulge that to other people so they're aware, they know not to go ahead and step on that, or at least if they do, you have a better indication this person just doesn't care. They're trying to trigger you on purpose. But that calls for being able to understand. So there's the self communication, and then there's the communication with other people. The second is being able to stay calm. So being rational, being logical, not easily rattled if something is popping off, if it's getting really dicey, you still there cool as a cucumber, you just, cool, calm, collected, you just, you in your bag and you just feeling for it. So you're not
mm,
reacting before thinking first, you're thinking, you're being proactive, you're making moves that you've thought about, that you prepared for, as opposed to just knee jerk stuff. um you're seeking to understand. So again, before you just jump to conclusions, you want to really get down. Did I really see this? Did I really hear this? Did I really understand this the way I think I did? Let me ask questions. Let me just confirm that I got this right instead of just running with something,
Yeah.
right? So
Mhm.
staying calm, and then being vulnerable. So that's being strong enough and comfortable enough internally to create relationships. You don't shy from relationships or friendships or whatever because you're afraid someone's going to hurt you. You understand that that's a risk that comes with it, and you don't back down from that. You're feeling strong enough emotionally, internally, where you're able to make those risks. You're also able to seek help when and where it's necessary. I would also probably add to that from what I saw as well. I didn't really see it included, but part of that I think would also be doing your due diligence and making sure that you're not just going ahead and just dumping on other people who are not in a space where they can receive what you're giving them. So if you have
Mhm.
people who are overburdened themselves, you're not going and vomiting on them when they have their own stuff to deal with. But
mm,
you're also making sure that you're going to something that can actually help you, or you can actually get a resolution. So venting is cool, but if there's an issue that's behind it and you're just venting, ultimately that becomes just mental masturbation. So you get it off, you bust off, feels great, but 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes later, a day later, whatever, the issue's right back. It didn't go anywhere.
Mhm.
mm,
So you just went through all that for no reason, as opposed to actually seeking out people or seeking out methods to solve and resolve the issue where it's done and dead for good. So once you bust, that's it. You ain't go back. You don't have to go back to it. So that's what I basically got the understanding of in my travels. So hopefully that makes it a little bit more plain to others. And I think there's probably some room to wiggle with. There might be some other things that could be added to that. Um, I don't think anything really needs to be taken out, but I believe that's subjective. But ultimately, it's really having a mastery, or at least a working mastery, of your emotions and really being settled. You're not easily jarred or rattled. You're a stable person. You're a whole person,
Mhm.
And consistent. Real talk.
Nice.
consistent.
Yeah, definitely.
It's big. It's
Great.
big.
Definitely great
It's
points.
meaty.
You
It's
said
meaty.
a lot, and just the self-reflection and self-accountability. Also, with emotional maturity, is very impactful whenever you're dealing with, or I should say, in the realms of systematical racism. Even with, you're dealing with a Karen or a Ken, right? As
Hmm.
much as you want to be emotionally engaged with them, there's a level of maturity that calls you to be strategic when dealing with them. Because sometimes, I always tell this to children, young adults, even adults. Whenever you engage with some of these race soldiers out here, what they do is they do a tactic that is very well known. And the tactic that a lot of police officers use is when they encounter you, they become hostile, they become the bully. And
Right.
what they do is they want you to react on that. Because once you react on that, now I don't care what you did, now you're battering a police officer. So now it's you're endangering a police officer, you're attacking a police officer. That's the charge that they will put on you,
Hmm.
right? And a lot of
Resisting.
times, a lot of our people become victims of that because, um, the bully will always bully somebody. But when the bully gets bullied back, the bully turns into a victim. So that's how it is. Police officers will bully you, and they'll bully you to get a reaction, the hostile, to get that reaction.
Hmm.
And once they get that reaction, now they can play victim. So you'll hear a lot of times on the police audio and radio is they'll say, "Oh, stop resisting, stop resisting."
Hmm.
So you are bullying me, and then when I react to it, now I'm resisting whatever it is that you consider to be resisting your command or in your space. So now I have that on. Now they have that on audio. When I go to court, people are not gonna understand the dynamics, but they'll hear the audio, and what they hear is the bully becoming the victim saying, "Stop resisting, stop resisting."
Right.
So basically, on audio, it sounds like they're trying everything to do to calm me down, but they never
Yeah.
hear the part where he raced up and bullied me. It's
Yep.
Hmm.
very funny how they use and clickbait people into that. But I tell young adults and even adults, you got to be very cautious about that. That's where emotional intelligence and emotional maturity comes in at, because it could save your life. A lot of
Yes.
times I've watched a lot of emotionally mature men get themselves not only out of a situation with an officer that was very erratic with them, but also check the officer and put the officer in his place to the point where the officer now is backing down and cowering down because that man has now put that officer in a predicament, in a chess move where if he makes the wrong move, it's checkmate on that black man. And that's the
Right.
type of intelligence and maturity that you need, understanding who your opponent is, understanding that keeping a calm and level head will get you much further, and being strategic about it, because everybody out here will are not emotionally mature or don't have emotional intelligence. And that's why you see a lot of these cops get owned by people who understand the law more than them, because a lot of these cops are really not out here um, programmed or even instilled with the correct information of the law. Some of them are just getting the badge and then they get thrown on the streets. And what they do is they're bullies. They were always bullies. Most of them were bullies when they were, regular, uh, civilians, and now they got the badge, and now some of that bulliness turns into ego. And a lot of
Yeah.
times they think because they have the badge that they're always in the right. But if you know the law and you keep your level head and your maturity, emotional maturity, you not only get out of that situation, but now you put that cop in a situation where either he's going to get locked up, you're going to sue the state, or that cop is going to lose his job, or it might be all three. You know what I'm saying? So it's very important that emotional maturity is basically achieved, because it can help you in all aspects of life. I know tonight we're supposed to talk about the relationship, but I just want to show you how powerful that something that minute can also elevate you in different parts of the life and even save your life in the long run. So hopefully this information you can now adapt and control, and then that way you can go ahead and proceed it on to your children as well. I know, shout out to Natasha, shout out to our brother Lowell in the chat. Natasha did write a couple of comments that I wanted to share. Um, what are some of the things you get you need? Okay, so what are some of the things you needed to improve on, right? So what are some of the things that I guess I needed to improve, or we needed to improve on? Well, I can go and say that one of the things that I had to improve on was mastering um, how to read somebody, so that way I know how to flow with them. It's kind of like tango, right? So you got tango is basically a dance that really requires both of you guys to be on the same level and movement, because in tango, I have to trust you to dip me. I have to trust you to turn me. So when you're basically um, reading each other, you'll understand the dance and the flow a little bit better. So in order for us to have this choreography that is so great in life, it takes the movement of both of us. I have to give you control, you have to give me control. We dance back and forth like that. That is how we roll as a unit. So I had to master that, because sometimes when you ask a man to lead you, and this is the thing that a lot of people don't understand. Um, a lot of women, everybody just runs with terms and terminology. And women will run around here and say, I want a man to lead. I want a man to lead. But that leadership role, it varies with different men, right? And it varies with what does a woman feel like that leadership is good enough for her. So a lot of times, some women will say, I need a leader to lead me. But they don't want no say in it. They just want you to go and lead them. And a lot of times when you do that, you overpower her as well. Even though she might want to say something, she feels like the leadership is only should be fall under a man, right? And in that process and in that moment, because she don't say anything, I could fall in my leadership, because I'm not leading you the way you feel like I should lead you. And you're sitting back not saying anything, and you're
Hmm.
allowing both of us to cripple each other. And that's how sometimes these relationships fall out, because it's the same way as, a lot of women, a lot of guys feel like because they're good in bed, they can go out there and satisfy every woman. But that's not the case. You have to know what woman you're dealing with to know what level of satisfaction you give. You could have the best steel out there for these women, but some women, no matter how good your sex is, if they don't connect with you mentally, they won't have a good sexual experience with you. If there's some women that have to be in love with you in order to feel you that way, some women, different positions or whatever, you have to go outside of the box. So every woman has their level of satisfaction, and with leadership, it's the same way. You have to let me know, like, in what areas is my should my leadership go without it being too much for you. I think the constructiveness of leadership should be a little bit of a balance of how do you want me to lead you. Once I know how you want somebody to lead you, I can lead you that way. So I had to understand and read people and understand what it is that that woman needed for me and how she needed me to lead her. I think sometimes we feel like, our leadership in one relationship is pretty dope, but we take that same leadership in another relationship and it fails.
Mm.
So everybody got to understand you have to deal with your mate according to how that is. And I had to learn that. I had to learn how to read. I had to learn how to understand. I had to learn to take in constructive criticism in order for us to prosper in that area and field. And even if you have a failed relationship, just gaining the knowledge helps you to be better in the next one. So always take things. I had to learn to never look at relationships as a total failure and look at it as a lesson to move forward into the next relationship and build that up to where it improved in that area. Um, I also had to learn how to take back, well, I wouldn't say take back, but I had to learn how to be conscious enough not to say certain things based on the level of how a woman would take it. So you can get the message across to a woman, but some people don't take the message as effective because of everybody learns different, right? So even with like you have children out here, and a lot of times people think children are failure because they don't perform well in school. But that same child you have in your living room, he's building up all your furniture. And he's doing that off of one sheet or sometimes just looking at a box. I've watched children look at a box and create a whole living room, right? And you say to yourself, in the school, you're a failure. Like you're looking at it because their curriculum, he's not coming home with the same grades. But then outside of it, he's so intellectual. He knows how to maneuver the computer better than you. He's very tech savvy and stuff like that. It's the same thing with relationships. You got to know who you're dealing with. Some people are book smart. Some people are just technically smart, right? So you have a lot of students that can excel in the books, but when you show them how to do it, they don't really understand it. Then you have some children that don't fail in the books, but then, in other words, they technically, man, they could do a lot. So you have to understand who you're dealing with and what level of strengths that they have. And when you know that level of strengths and weaknesses, you can therefore build with that person so that way um, you don't end up making the message go over their head or being taken in the wrong way. You got to know how to feed that person that you're with. And I've learned that and learned that in a good way. You know what I'm saying? So I changed in that way as well. And there's other aspects that I've changed in, but I'll let you guys give off a couple of what you had changed in. So we could go with you, Major. What things have you changed in that you improved on?
Oh man, it's a lot. It's a lot, bro. I used to be when I was a kid. I used to be a little hothead, man. You know what I mean? Like I used to bring the pressure. You know what I'm saying? Like I grew up in Brown Sub out here. I moved to Cali. I was in the Bay Area. I'm talking about early '90s, late '80s, early '90s Bay Area. You know the scene. You know what I'm saying? So that
Yeah,
that didn't help much, in terms of calming me down. But what did help, was seeing a lot of my friends get killed. You know what I mean? Even just recently, I lost a homie out west. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
he was one of those guys. He was kind of, he calmed down a lot in his older age, but he was a hothead when he was younger too. And when you start to see these things up close, you know, I've lost a lot of friends. You know what I mean? Charlie Brown, I lost him. Some people call him C Murder. I lost him back in the days. Power, I lost him. You know, either to jail or
mm,
to gun violence or something like that. And when you start to see it, it becomes so real. It's right in your face. Your friends get murked. here and there. Sometimes, you see your friends get killed over, silly gangbang shit. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Mm.
man, okay, this hothead shit is not very practical. You know what I mean? You figure out real quick, it's it's not, the retirement plan for being a hothead. It ain't one that you want to really, end up in. So, from that, and just from other things, I talked one time on, this show about one time I was in the back of a police car and the cop saw me like, I know your mama, go home, boy. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? When you start to see that type of stuff up close, and it's like, damn, that was almost me. I was almost a statistic. You really reel yourself in and you look at things differently. I've had attempts made on my life. You understand what I'm saying? And it's like, yo, when you get there, it's a reality check that you can't avoid because it just hits you upside the head. You can't run from it. So,
Yeah.
I learned one of the things that I learned is that cooler heads prevail. You know,
Yeah.
things through. You might be hot in the moment, or whatever the case may be, but when you think it through, it's going to bring you to a better place. It's going to lead you to a more productive outcome. You know, and above and beyond that, to speak back to
Mm-hmm.
something that you said earlier, emotional maturity
Mm-hmm.
greatly impacts the type of people that you keep around you. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? That circle that we talked about, when you get to that, point of emotional maturity in your life, you're not going to have knuckleheads around you. Even some people that I know and I respect a great deal, I look at some of the people around them, I'm like, you ain't ready. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You just not ready. You have all these toxic people around you, and you're an intelligent person, well, but you got all these knuckleheads around you. And you see
Mm-hmm.
firsthand how that takes away from people. And when you really get to that point where you're deadly serious about life, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't have no bullshit people around you. You make sure
Yeah.
everybody around you is solid.
Correct.
That's a huge part of emotional maturity. And also just knowing how to reel yourself in. You know um sometimes I mean, I learned how to be very intentional about things that I said. Any other way. Just being it's a really big deal. That denotes emotional maturity more so than anything, and just living code, rules and guidelines that you don't really stray from. You know what I mean? Having a
Yeah.
personal code. We speak as black folks all the time about being a code, but individually, you should have a certain code. Whereas there's certain things that you just won't do. You know what I mean? Yeah,
Yeah.
certain things that you absolutely will do all the time. You know what I mean? Dave Chappelle talked about that when he talked about the dress. You know what I mean? And others when they talk about things like that, having integrity, being that type of person that you stand on your word 1000% of the time. These are important things. That there's nothing like that type of forthrightness and that type of character. It's really a big deal, and it makes you very influential, whether you know it or not. It makes you very influential and very much able to convey messages and bring others to a better place because they can see that you're doing it. You're not just talking. You know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
doing it. You're living it. You are the Malcolm X of this thing. And I use Malcolm specifically because even, the feds who were trying so hard to infiltrate Malcolm to get him to switch out, even they said he
Yeah.
was a Boy Scout. I mean, he he lived it. They said he was real. So
Yeah.
When your audience be saying that you're real, you the real deal. That's how I try to move because it's imperative that we do so. We can't make foolish mistakes and screw up. So we must be, especially as black men, we must have our emotional maturity in check. It's not an option.
Yeah,
Bobby,
definitely. Bobby,
Absolutely. So
that's dope.
on
Dope.
my end of the spectrum, definitely similar to you, Major. Especially when I was younger, coming up, uh, had a nasty, wicked temper. Really bad, quick to get it on with you. The virtue that I had was that I was never a bully type. I was never someone that went looking for trouble like that. However, I just had a bad habit when I was a kid of trouble finding me. So I just be chilling, doing my own thing for the most part, and nonsense and BS or whatever comes along, and I was always his favorite dartboard to go ahead and land some shots on. And so
yeah,
many times I found myself in situations that I didn't necessarily go looking for, but I either didn't know how to or didn't get out of the way of. So it would be simple, basic things. Some instances it would even be that things other people were doing around me, and they were fine, but I would be the one who got caught for it or whatever. And so when I was younger, especially, I moved around a lot. I've probably been to several different just partly for behavior in that regard, but also for other reasons. But probably before I even touched third grade, I had been to several different schools already. And so, with habitually being a new kid, in a lot of those situations, I was also one of the only, if not the only, black kid in those situations. So I definitely had to deal with a lot of little white supremacist jerk off bullshit or whatever
Mm,
as well too. So um, the situations where it was like the kids were against me, the adults were against me. It was just me and everybody else, and so that kind of stuff definitely didn't do much to kind of help temper that or whatever. So um, I would try and do the best I could to not get in trouble, to just bottle it up because I know what's going to happen if I lash out. I know it's going to be on me. No one's going to care about who threw the rock. They just going to see the person that got hit by it and responded. So I had to do a whole lot of dancing back and forth with my emotions, and so that didn't put me in a very good place. Um, Once I got to third grade, there was a bit of stability. I was able to finish out the school year in the same school, and I remember specifically it meant so much to me. When I got to middle school, I begged my parents, said, "Please, I moved around a lot. I don't want to move. Can I just start here and just finish it?" Just that completion meant a whole bunch to me. It meant a lot to me. And
yeah,
so I thankfully had that opportunity to do that. But even still, nonsense still keeps following you sometimes. I also have a theory, and I said that typically, like anything else, a lot of behaviors, good and bad, we tend to wear them as skin sometimes. And a lot of times people can both consciously and subconsciously pick up on certain things. So, for example, it's not an accident that people who've been the victims of abuse, they tend to go from one abusive situation to another. Not that they're necessarily looking for abuse, but a lot of the things that should be maybe red flags or characteristics, they either don't jump out of the person, or the people who have those characteristics, they see the characteristics of someone who's been abused and they gravitate towards that. So, I believe because I had because I had been used to being bullied coming up, I believe I subconsciously gave off a lot of pick on me energy that may be
mm,
right for people trying to come and screw with me, whatever. So I had a lot of situations where people would come at me, and I had done my best to just take it, and just do it the most possible. But it got to a point where due to the policies, they'd be like, if you were in a fight, it doesn't matter if you swing or if you throw back, they're automatically suspending all parties involved. And so I'd be right on the sidelines and like, okay, so I was able to control my temper. I didn't lash. I didn't hit this person. I'm still getting suspended. What the hell? It got to the point where one day my mother picked me up from school and she's like, "Look, I'm tired." She basically said in so many words, "Look, I'm tired of getting your ass beat. Um, I understand that you're not the one doing these things. If you're gonna get suspended, regardless, you need to start getting your hands dirty."
Yeah.
So the minute I heard that, green light, the next time someone started, bop, 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 I'm sending people to the clinic. I'm coming out looking 50. I'm suspended, but I'm not frowning as hard. I'm taking them 5 days, them 7 days, them 10 days, a lot cooler than before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I had to. It got to the point where that was good for defending myself, so I'm not getting as battered and bruised, but I'm still in a bad way. Ultimately, it got to a point where I had so many suspensions on my record that I was really at risk of getting expelled and getting kicked out. Because it was going to be a problem. So I had to find ways to channel my issues better, find ways to de-escalate the situation. And one of the things that helped both control my temper, but also to get me in a calmer state, get me in a place where I'm able to think and move differently was music.
Mm.
So I don't know. I think it first started with the songs. I didn't really get put onto hip hop and rap music like that until I bumped into one of my very good friends in sixth grade. He was bumping Lyricist Lounge Volume 2 in the CD player. I asked, I don't know what you're listening to. Sounds good. Can I hear it? And I listened to it and I heard Most Def, Pharoah Monch, Nate Dogg, some other stuff. And I'm like, yo, I've never heard this before. This is amazing, whatever. And so from that point, I was just hungry. I was just digging for this stuff. And I stumbled onto a song that would end up being the most important song of my life. It literally changed the direction that I was on. And that was Nas's One Mic. And so I
Mm.
heard this song. I heard the lyrics. I even saw the music video back when the box was a thing. And
Okay.
just the way that song was arranged, the lyrics, even though, I'm a kid, half these concepts he's talking about is going over my head. But just the way he's presenting, he starts off, real slow and, methodical, but then as the song goes, he's building up, and finally it explodes. He's loud, he's boisterous, and then the chorus comes in, he's back down quiet again. Just hearing that did something to me where it allowed me to vent. So anytime I was upset, it would be my ritual. Go by yourself, isolate yourself, put this song on, listen to it as many times as it took, and it was my way of self-regulating. So I
Wow.
was still young. I didn't have the means to regulate myself, so I had to find an alternative. So that's part of emotional maturity coming in. I recognize where my limitations are. I recognize I'm here, but for my own benefit, for my own survival, really, I need to be it here. I can't get there by myself. So I found a means of doing that without realizing it. And so now
Mm.
this is starting to get me to where I need to be. And this is when music started becoming really a huge part of my life. So I ended up getting into marching band in my school. We had a really good marching band program, and so now I'm in this activity that I really care about. I'm learning how to play music. So now I'm not just listening, but I'm also a creator of this thing that I care about. But it also gave me something to lose. So now I maybe wasn't as, not getting suspended, not getting in trouble. It wasn't as big an issue for me personally. But I know when I'm taking these L's, I'm losing out. I can't be in band. I can't go on trips, whatever. So now this is giving me an incentive where I need to control myself now, because if I don't, I'm going to take an L. I'm going to suffer. I'm not going to be able to do the thing that means the world to me. And so between those two things, I was able to get myself to a point where I was able to control myself and to lash out. And sure enough, once I started those two things, I went from getting to several fights during sixth grade year, got to seventh grade year, only got into a few fights. Eighth grade year came, only got into one fight, and that was the last time I ever actually had to put hands on somebody in that regard. The last time I was tested, but I passed, was in my freshman year of high school, and it was some sucker that I knew back from middle school, and he figured he was going to go ahead and try, get some clout by messing with me.
Mm.
And in that moment, I did snap. I did almost go off. But fortunately, I was in a position where I wasn't able to get free. There's a few people that had to restrain me. But just the ferocity that I gave off was so severe. Dude ran out the classroom, ain't come back the rest of class. And after that, I don't know if word
Mm.
spread or what, but after that, nobody even so much as came my way anymore. And so I
Mm.
was able to overcome that. And that's when I learned the power of being able to self regulate your emotions, keeping yourself in check. So that self control aspect was big for me, but
Mm.
specifically know how to manage yourself so it doesn't get to that point. So I became very big on prevention and making sure that you're doing things and putting yourselves in positions to win.
Mm.
So there's certain situations, certain places, and that's big for a lot of people because a lot of people, especially high profile folks, they get into bad situations, not necessarily because they're looking for it, but because they're in a place that that is that's conducive towards that. I
Mm,
heard 50 Cent on an interview saying, I think it was earlier today, he said, for the most part, rich people don't go in star fights. No matter where
mm,
they're at a club, they're at a party, there's somebody's they're chilling, they got the bottles with the people, they're enjoying themselves, they're trying to live good and trying to enjoy themselves. That most of the time, it's people who hate their life, who aren't doing well, that go and start
Right.
stuff.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Real
I
So
hear
talk.
you.
now you can always control that because sometimes, I mean, if you out in Publix or whatever, you shop, or you out in Walmart or something, and someone comes up, I mean, that's you can't do
Yeah.
anything about that.
Yeah.
But for the most part, knowing what situations you're going into, asking questions like, "Hey, we're getting together. Okay, cool. Who else will be over there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll set them out." Or just knowing
Yeah.
certain places. If you know you don't have good history at a certain location, whatever, don't go to
Yeah.
them spots. Don't do these
Yeah.
things. If you know you have issues with drinking, you can't control your liquor, whatever. You take one or two shots and you just lose it. Put the
Hey.
alcohol down. Don't touch the
Real.
drugs. Don't. If you know you have impulse issues, in other words, separate yourself from the difficulties. Put yourself in a
Yeah.
position to win. Don't set
Yes.
yourself up for failure. Don't tempt the devil. Don't do
Yes.
that.
Hey,
Always.
that's
Um,
such a
Very well
listen.
said.
I just wanted to say something real quick. When you said that about who's over there, I remember growing up when I was in my younger years, and I remember there was two guys, Alex and Richard. Richard is on my page. Alex is on my Instagram page. Alex and Richard. If these two is going out with us, I ain't going. I am not going.
Yeah.
don't
Dog,
do it.
these dog,
Yeah.
these are Chi and Chung dudes. These is the yin
Oh,
yang, like
Yeah.
all like they're like the devil's advocate in each other's ears. Like it's like one
nope.
Alex to be like Alex is a short dude. I call him the Neo Complex dude. So he's always been the short dude out of all of us. So you already know how that
Uh,
kicks in.
Already
that
know.
Richard is
Napoleon
pretty tall.
Hill effect.
Richard is up my level. He's 6 foot. He's up my and Alex would come around us and be like, man, this and he'll swing his little arms and be like, man, this fuck nigga tried us, dog. Like, nah, dog, this shit. And here come Richard. Dog, what you want to do, dog? Cause I'll go over there and spark his ass. And then you hear and Alex like, all right, let's go. And then I'm like, oh shoot, fight breaks out. We got to go over there and rumble in the jungle. And I'm like,
Uh,
after a while, I started to notice the pattern. And then I'm like,
yeah.
look, I can't be doing that because see the thing about it is, and we got to understand how Miami is. I think everybody understands where their area is, but y'all got
Yeah.
to understand the jungles of Miami. And the jungles of Miami, you know, is it's rough. We wasn't known for gang banging. We're not down here where you got Crips and Bloods and nothing like that. But we have affiliated our own gangs, whether it's streets, right? You got the
Mhm.
73rd and 71st, they beefing all up in the projects together. You know what I'm saying? And it's like you two streets ahead, you two streets away from y'all, and yet y'all cliques is always killing somebody. Y'all every week, there's every episode is a clique member for one group on First 48. And the
Yeah.
Yep.
retaliation was so severe down here, down in the Poking Beans, that it was really, really, they had to like, they had to do some intervention down there to get that shit straight. But it was
Yeah.
really that bad. Two streets away from each other, these dudes was at each other's throats, a war zone. You know what I'm saying? And it's like
Crazy.
when I was going out with these guys, I had to realize like we're getting in beef with people they know, right? Because I'm from Maryland. I came down from Maryland. I came from New York. So I'm from up north. So I'm coming down here. I don't know a lot of the cats that they have beef with. So
Yeah.
if I'm out here rumbling with them, I don't roll with them everywhere I go. So
Mm.
it's easy for somebody to recognize me and catch me slipping and make me
Use
an
some
example
easy picking.
because of who they are. You feel me? So
Yeah.
that's why my dad, it always resonated when my dad told me that. He was like, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. Because friends don't put friends in danger like that. It's one thing
Right.
when you're defending yourself, but it's another thing for amping up something. You know what I'm saying? Because I remember a comedian said this, right? And it's one of my favorite skits. Like his name was Dave Butler. And Dave Butler was just on stage doing his thing. And then this lesbian woman was a heckler. And she tried to like crack jokes on him. So he said, all right, you know, and he ended up cracking jokes on her. And then she got mad. And then he said to her, he was like, how you get mad at me? You can't punch a guy and then a guy come and shoot you and you be like, yo, you overreacted. You
Yeah.
can't do that. You can't judge how somebody gonna react. If you hit somebody, you can't stop somebody for how they're gonna take what level they're gonna take it on. You feel me?
Yes,
I
sir.
could get in a fight with y'all, and then next thing you know, a dude blow my brains out, and y'all gonna be like, "Oh man, you went too far. Like, why you do that to my boy?" No, you don't know what level it escalate because you don't know the mindset of that other person. So
Yep.
that's why I
Oh,
tell people like, yo, a lot of times when situations occur, and that's when we went back, remember Major? We went back to the whole stepping on my shoe in the club because
Yeah.
years later I had to emotionally be mature about certain situations. It was easily he stepped on my shoe. I could have elbowed him, I could have sparked him in the rib or something. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said to him, I took the approach like, let me try something different. And I said, damn, my bad, dog. And he looked at me and said, no, man, my bad. I stepped on your shoe. And then we was laughing, chuckling up. Next thing you know, we exchanging drinks at the bars. And then he
Yeah.
gives me his business cards and we networked. So it
As
went
well.
from something that could have went all the way left to
Yeah.
something that went just right. And it
All the
couldn't
way
have ended
right.
out perfect. You feel me?
Love
But it
that.
takes you
Love
the
that.
level of maturity. It takes experience to get to that level to understand that what I did in the past wasn't working for me. And that's why they always say, learn from your mistakes. Because guess what? If I didn't have that experience back then with Alex and Richard,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have got to that level of that maturity because I would have been like, yo, I would have popped off because I never got tired. Once you get tired of something, you're always like, nah, something got to do, something got to give. So I would have never got to the level of being tired to notice, like, let me do something different because that road will I end up in the casket. So if I never experienced all of that before, I wouldn't have got tired to the point where I'm trying something different, which ended up with a positive reaction. Had I
Yeah.
not had that experience, I probably would have popped off and probably wouldn't even be on this podcast with y'all right now. Because either
Mm.
I would have been in the casket or I would have been in jail. Either or. It wouldn't have been a good ending. But it takes a level of maturity to understand that, to switch the game up, to switch it up, just for the embetterment of yourself, and not even just the embetterment of yourself, but the embetterment of the community. Because at the end of the day, this black man is part of my community. This black man represents me because he represents what I look like, you know what I'm saying, when he walks down the street. So it's my extended brother. So now instead of fighting my extended brother, I'm having beers and cheering it up with him at the bar, exchanging businesses, like promoting himself as well as prospering and flourishing on something more positive. So I love that approach, and I always took that and always looked at that example, and I use that example to teach other children and other young adults that you don't have to take the exact same route. Whatever it is in your situation, just think of the emotionally mature way of going about it, so that way you guys don't become a statistic and everything flows. Because whenever somebody dies, whenever somebody goes to jail, families are affected forever,
Yeah.
right? And now instead of two people being destroyed in this, now you got families, and depending on how big those families are, is how big the destruction is. So it's very important that you use emotional maturity in all aspects of your life because in the long run, it definitely will save you. Um,
Let
I
me
I
let me,
I, I
let me jump
thought,
in real
yeah,
quick.
yeah, go ahead, jump in.
Real quick. Because I want to make sure I add this in.
Yeah.
Because I we had a conversation the other day and I made a post the other day. And
Hmm.
you when you hit on something when you mentioned that this person is a part of my community,
Hmm.
right? And I wanted to make sure I interjected this.
Yeah.
People always a very important part of emotional maturity is understanding
Mm.
how your actions affect the community and the collective.
Yeah.
I saw you
Everything
go.
I'm gonna pound this damn nail into the wall until it goes all the way in. You understand what I'm saying? Because people, this goes over people's heads. You know what I'm saying? People always asking this idiotic question when you comment on something.
Hmm.
Well, why are you even worried about it? Well, why are you even talking about it? Well, why you all in their business? Let me educate you. Okay, we are always in their business and we're worried about it and we're talking about it because we understand that normalization of behavior becomes culture,
Mm.
and culture impacts everybody. That's the long and short of it. You
Say
know,
that again.
so
Say that again. One more time. One more
Mhm.
time for the people in the back.
normalization of certain behaviors becomes excuse me, sorry, becomes culture, and culture impacts everybody.
Mm.
You understand? So when you see us commenting on things and going in on things and you don't think it's a big deal, we're looking at the big picture. Because if you continue to allow this behavior and allow this behavior and allow this behavior to the point where it becomes normalized, then you look up one day and it's the culture.
Mm.
Yeah, it started off very small, but now it is the culture. It is what we do. It is what we accept. It is how we move. You understand?
Mm.
And now it's impacting everybody. Now you got men with wigs on winning women's trophies for competing in women's sports. You think that happened overnight?
Mm.
No.
Nope.
It started somewhere. You didn't say nothing. You understand what I'm saying? It started
Mm.
somewhere you didn't say nothing, and it got worse and it got worse, and now it's the culture.
Correct.
You understand what I'm saying? You got
Absolutely.
a whole generation of young people that think it's the cool shit to be a dope boy, and it's the cool shit to be if you're a boy, if you're male, and it's the cool shit to be a sex worker or a stripper or what have you if you're a girl. That didn't happen by accident. Back in the days, sisters used to be the ones who used to fight the hardest against, you know, certain type of imagery of them. Now that's supposedly empowering.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I can remember back in the day, hip hop. I remember Rakim said on one of his songs, "Selling drugs is for handicaps." You understand
Yeah.
what I'm saying? I remember that. Now you got a whole genre within the genre of hip hop called trap music.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? And our
Correct.
kids look up to the image of the dope boy and of the stripper as like some place that they should aspire to be. And
Correct.
I blame that on us
Yep.
because we let it get there. You understand what I'm saying? When you see certain types of behaviors and people fly out the window and they get crazy, people say what they want to say about the J community, but they don't
Yeah.
allow people to talk about them any old kind of way.
Nope.
They don't allow people on television or in music or anywhere else to portray them any kind of way because they know where that goes. They know how that ends. And so
The
Mm.
I
hard
wanted
way.
you that are listening here to look at the big picture. Stop being so narrow-minded. Stop being so stuck in your ways because we let a lot of shit pass that we shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Reality TV is entirely an insult to black people, but we
Correct.
can't stop watching it. Hip hop is almost 100% weaponized against us right now, but we
Yeah.
can't stop listening to it. You understand what I'm saying?
Correct.
We got a lot of soul searching to do, and we got to learn how to start nipping things in the bud. That was
It's
what I
It's
had to say. Go ahead. Go
it's
ahead.
it's a lot like somebody driving an 18 wheeler,
mm.
Okay.
and they just they back it up nice and slow, nice and slow, nice and slow, and here you go, and the whole time you see it coming right your direction, and you're like, well, that's not my business, or hey man, you should move. Why are you in their business? Mind the business, or Mind the business that pays you. Don't worry about what's going on. And the truck gets an inch from your nose. You're still not worried about it because it's
Mm.
not your business. Then all of a sudden, one of them big ass dual tires goes and ever so gently starts rolling across your foot. And all of a sudden, it's get off. You only had infinity to yell at the driver. You
Yeah,
only had forever to get your goofy ass out the way, take 4 or 5 steps back, and the truck would be able to go on about its merry way. But no, you chose to stand right where you are. You see the danger coming,
Right.
and
mm,
you did it out the way because you had to wait for it to be not even on your doorstep. You had to wait for it to be in your house,
correct.
sitting on the
Uh-huh.
sofa right next to you, eating your
Yeah.
popcorn, sipping your drink, pushing the buttons on your remote control on your TV, playing with
Yeah.
your audio. You had to
Mm.
wait till it got that close to you. If you have to wait for something to hit you in the face, to hit you in the
Mm,
nose before you realize, you know what, this is a problem, you have a severe mental impairment. Either you're very slow intellectually, and I'm
mm,
not being funny or condescending, I'm serious. You're either
mm,
very slow, you either are unable to see or think more than 1 or 2 moves ahead. Again, you have to wait till something is right there, it's blatant,
correct.
before you can pick up on the signs and cues. Or for some wicked reason, you have a vested interest in that going down that way.
Correct.
So it's either you're slow, it's either you're unable to see, you have no vision, and or it's either because you have some part to play in what's going on. And if it's one of the first two, that's not a knock against you. You have the right to be slow. The same way some people have the right to be quick, you have the right to be slow. You have the right to not have vision, but you need to recognize your limitations. If you understand, hey, I have a problem with seeing the next move, whatever, you need to listen to what other people are saying and see if maybe you can pick up on what's being put down.
Real
Mm,
talk.
Every criticism isn't some being negative or whatever. Sometimes people are just saying, "Hey, get out the way, man! It's about to go down."
Real
yeah,
talk.
So
Real talk.
like Mike Tyson said, every person that helps you isn't your friend, and everybody that you fight is not your enemy.
mm,
Real talk. That's heavy.
Well, you
That's
have to
heavy.
be able to, and that's part of being vulnerable. We're talking about emotional maturity. Part of emotional maturity is vulnerability. Part of vulnerability is being able to say, you know what, I recognize I'm limited because we talk about seeking help. I recognize I'm limited. I'm maybe good and great in other things, in other situations, but I do not have the best skills when it comes to perception, evaluation, critical thinking analysis. So you need to find people who are good at that and lean on them so that their strength can become your strength. Again, it's not putting you down. If that's what it is what it is. You
correct.
know, some people can't count for shit. They're terrible. You put a division problem in front of them, a multiplication problem in them, they're gonna be scratching their brains. But you give them an S to the right, they can bang that out beautifully. And vice versa. You have to recognize where you're weak and where you're strong, and you have to make the adjustments for your weaknesses.
Correct. Yeah,
Real talk.
that's
There it
real,
is.
real, real, real talk.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't understand it until it's too late. We I've been telling people about mass before COVID hit, and people didn't understand how did I know that information. I mean, you just do your research. A lot of times history would tell you what's going to happen. And, just doing your due diligence of just looking for stuff to be ahead of the game. Always, be ahead of the game. That's why we always talk about chess, because chess, you have to be moves ahead of your opponent. Um, and that's how you survive in this world. So when we're telling you things, you have three brothers on here that are very intelligent and could tell you historically how things are moved. When shout out to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, we had honored her on Crown Check one time, and Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, she got it from Neely Fuller, and they both were talking about how men were going to be wearing dresses. You know what I'm saying? And
Really
this
did.
was back in what, the 70s? They were talking
Yeah,
about
they
that,
hit that out the
70s,
park.
80s, around that
They hit
time.
it out
And
the park.
and now that's what you're seeing now. So you
That's
have
what I'm
certain
It's like
people,
they had a telescope looking into today. Like they saw it like it was
exactly.
happening in real time.
And remember, this was the sister. And this wasn't Neely Fuller. This was Dr. Frances Cress Welsing that told you Trump was going to be president. Nobody believed the sister. She told
Crazy,
you.
crazy.
Because y'all got to understand, sometimes when people see things and it come true, those are the people you need to study and follow. Those are the people you need to ask. You know what I'm saying? I was
Hmm.
telling people multiple times different things that were going to happen, and it ended up happening. And
That's
people have now opened their eyes onto it. And I have a platform coming called Politically Dope that will talk about the politics side of it. But
nice.
it just goes to show you that, you know, when you have brothers that are telling you things, intelligent brothers, we're not telling you these things just to be talking. We don't babble. We don't waste breath. You know, somebody always say, I remember somebody said, um, why waste your breath? You know, I could save that 6 seconds to tell somebody I love them before I pass away.
Yeah.
You
Real
know,
talk.
I might need that extra breath for a critical moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So why would we out here talking just to be talking? We're talking because we love our community. We love our people. You know, y'all be the same ones that say that we hate women, but yet we do more for women. We basically acknowledge women. You know, we embrace women. We're raised by strong women. We understand it. We basically acknowledge it and we support it and we admire it and we appreciate it.
Mm.
The reason that we talk about the no good people, the no good men and the no good women is because that is not part of Black excellence. There is no need for that in our society if we're trying to build a village. Remember,
Right.
when we were growing up, we got beat by people we ain't even know.
Hmm.
And guess what? When we got home, we got an
Got
extra beating.
real
You know what I'm
talk.
saying? We got an extra beating on top of that beating. So, you know, I had went to school in Jamaica for 2 years. And I'm gonna
Mm.
tell you like this. I thought because I was coming from the American society, like, you know, we come here, we miss homework. They don't really say nothing. Shit.
Yeah.
You miss homework in Jamaica, man, the teacher got a big wrestling belt. I'm talking about you
Whoa.
remember the
Whoa.
old school you remember the
Them
old
power,
school
the power
postal
lifter
worker?
belt.
You remember
Yeah.
that old school postal worker belt? The old
Yeah.
school, like the people who know old school postal worker belt
Oh
was
no.
the damn WWF belts, right? They had, dog, this lady had the damn WWF belt, size
Hilarious.
belt on top of her desk. I
Uh,
didn't come with my I didn't do my homework. So I thought I was cool. This
uh,
lady whooped me in the class. I was like, yo, is this legal? She tore my ass up in the class. Now I'm coming from American society, living in Jamaica, and I was like, this is what goes on. No wonder their education is on top in the
uh,
Caribbeans, right? They don't play that. So
yeah.
not only did I get beat from there, my neighbor, who was real close to my parents, found out, and I got called over to next door, and I got my ass tore up. Then I went next door, and my grandmother tells me, "Yeah, wait till your grandfather come. He gonna tear your ass up." And then my grandfather tore my ass up. And this
Uh,
nigga had he had the Jesus Hirachi sandal 12s, which in the Jamaica, them shit shaped like a boat, and this nigga had like size 13 feet. So at
the
that time,
Nazareth
that looked like
one.
a whole
Yeah.
board. That was like a whole board to my back.
Think you're
And
on a
my
world tour,
grandfather,
boy.
yes, my grandfather is about 6'4", about 280,
Oh,
and this man got the
not
strength
that guy.
of Zeus.
Not that dude.
Man, when I
Damn.
tell you, when I tell you
Mm.
that after that day, I never took education for granted. I
You
made
remember you
sure I
don't do
had
it now?
everything. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And everything was in order. It straightened me. And it wasn't just if my granddad had beat me, I don't think it would have been effective. But knowing that this teacher loved me enough to beat me because she knew that I would have started a bad habit and she
Right.
corrected and nipped it in the bud. Then my neighbor who understands that if I don't go out here and be productive myself,
Yeah.
I'm going to end up breaking into her home or other people's home. So she
That's right.
beat me as a community to say, your ass ain't going to be no goddamn criminal. And
Yeah.
I'm coming home to my grandfather who was beating me to let me know that you are far more intelligent than the shit that you exuded. And also, you know better. You understand that you're more than what this bullshit you carrying on with, and we're
Yeah.
not going to accept it. So I got beat by 3 different people with 3 different meanings, but they all were part of our community and they all were the village. And they took care of what? Their child. I was their child. And this is what we're telling you. When we point stuff out, we're the village. We're
Right.
pointing stuff out because this affects all aspects of our community. So when I point something out, or Bobby points something out, or Major points something out, we're all pointing it out because we understand the effects of it if we let it go wild and not nip it in the bud. If you see a fire that starts off in the grass and there's no houses or nothing, it's just a small fire inside in the greenery inside the grass,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to put it out? Of course you're going to put it out. Because if I don't put it out, guess what? It turns into a California wildfire. Now
Yeah.
you got ambulance and everybody that can't even put it out. They got to wait it out.
It's too big.
It's too big. And
Yeah.
that's what we're saying with the community of how you are keeping everybody in check. Because once you check somebody, you're not only checking one person, you're checking and making sure that the whole community is protected by that.
That's
So
right.
we just want you guys to understand that when we come and talk about stuff, it's from a place of love, not a place of hurt. So take our lessons, take that and apply it to yourself. If you're a person that, if you don't want to go out here and teach people, when you see people out here teaching, just move out the way. Let them do what they do. We understand that you wouldn't do it. Don't block them for what they're doing because maybe it's a calling from their ancestors to do it. Because everybody don't want to do their ancestors' work, but damn sure everybody want the ancestors' production and productivity from it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they want to see the finished product that the ancestors have brought to us, but nobody wants to put in the work. You know what I'm saying? Everybody didn't rally behind to go grab shotguns to follow Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman said, fuck it, I'll grab the shotgun. And she made a way for millions of people to be free and be born free instead of being in slavery.
Yeah.
So imagine if somebody picked up a gun and shot her. Now you
Mm-hmm.
killed a whole bunch of people that would have been born free on the free territory and not on the plantation. So you killing your own demise, you killing your own people by sitting back, sending shots, or going after the people that's trying to free the masses and protect the masses. Always remember that.
Real
All
talk.
right.
Yes, sir.
So
Amen.
um, yes, definitely. I definitely wanted to point out this one comment I thought was very dope. Mila had wrote. This comment was pretty dope. She said,
Shot Paul.
Prisons are filled with brothers and sisters who have a lower adversity quotient versus than intelligent quotient. So
Mm.
I thought that was pretty dope because it is a lot of intelligent people that's in prison, but not a lot of people that exude emotional maturity. And we see that especially in the domestic violence situations that's happening recently. We see
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of increased domestic violence because people don't have the emotional maturity to get out of that situation and level it off and have the intelligence enough to say to themselves, how do we work out of this situation? We don't see eye to eye. Before it escalates to something to another level, how do we move out of this situation? That way I can move out and I be happy with it. You can move out and be happy with it. No, it's one person saying something, then it escalates to another person saying something, and somebody ends up dying. And we've seen that on Facebook Live the other day when the brother was trying to get up out of there and the girl sat back and kept escalating it. And then her mother, who instigating it, she's instigating the whole thing. And guess what? Shorty picked up the gun and shot her husband dead. And we played that last week. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people had to sign in to get to the last program we had, because it had the disturbing violence behind the live video that we played. Even though the room was dark, I wanted people to hear how the children came in and witnessed their father shot dead by their mother, and they were crying, and that was harmful. That hurted. And that's what I told you before when we talk about emotional maturity, how to maneuver out of a situation so it don't go all the way left. And that went all the way left. And guess what? The grandmother barely could take care of the children, and she had her daughter. Now her daughter goes to jail for killing this guy, for killing her man, um, her children's father. Now the children's father is dead. He can't take care of nobody. He can't make no money for these children. So now you have 5 children that they have, all where they're gonna go. The grandmother can't take care of them, so I'm pretty sure they're gonna fall into the system. You know what I'm saying? All because you didn't have the emotions under control, the emotional maturity to say, you know what, I I I have an issue with this, but I'm not gonna handle it this way. We're gonna
Yeah.
sit down and think of a better way to handle this, but something has to be done, opposed to you raising your voice. And then when he reacted, all of a sudden you picked the gun up and you shot him in cold blood. This has to change. And we see the scenario vice versa, where guys will do the same thing, provoke. Um, Guys will sit back, and a woman would, trying to get out of the situation, and he's not allowing her, and he ends up killing her. We seen a man on live FaceTime, well, not live, but he FaceTimed his girl choking the hell out of his 2-year-old daughter on FaceTime so she could see it, because she was with another man, and didn't want to be with him. They were already separated. They were co-parenting, and because you were so emotionally hurt, and you raised your emotions to kill your own daughter, and you wanted to show that live on FaceTime to your child's mother. And to me, that right there is like the lowest of lows, because at the end of the day, I don't have any children. Y'all don't have any children, but I've raised children like my
Mm.
own, because I
Yeah.
know at the end of the day, we lived our lives. If I died for a child right now, I wouldn't feel bad, because I
Right.
want that child to live their life like I did. I lived my life. I lived probably one of the best lives I think I could live. And people think you have to have numerous amount of money to do that. No, I had a great childhood. I had a great life that I created for myself. You know what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
if I die tomorrow for that child, I would sacrifice my life for a child, because I want that child to grow up and enjoy their life as well, extendedly. I wouldn't want a child to get their life ended at a young age before they can experience this world. And for you to choke out a 2-year-old that just wants to have fun, just loves you, loves your daddy, loves her mama, loves seeing her friends, just living a peaceful life, and you kill her because of your emotional instability for your ex-girl who's happy with another man, because you couldn't provide that kind of happiness. And I'm not saying that you're supposed to provide a happiness for your woman, but you didn't make it work enough for you to contain your family with the life you created with her. So she went outside of that and seeked it elsewhere, and you took it out on a child that had no, that child had nothing to do with your conflict between you and your children's mother. And for you to do something so heinous as that, you definitely need to burn in hell for that. There's
Real talk.
no excuse for that. And
Hmm.
we are here on Manifestations to help brothers to not get to that level, because that destroys us. Because guess what? I tell people this all the time. Imagine that little girl as Harriet Tubman. Imagine that little girl as Asada Shakur, or some of our great women out there, or even Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, or the lady who we honored who had the 200 patents, or even the black lady that invented the navigation system, the GPS.
Right.
Imagine that little girl was one of those, was that little girl. You just destroyed a whole nation a whole society, because that little girl would have probably would have grew up and did something so spectacular for the whole world to live and adapt to, and be grateful for the technology that could have provided.
Yeah.
Imagine if somebody would have strangled the neck of the lady who created the GPS. We wouldn't even have no damn GPS right now.
Yeah.
We'll still
And
be we'll still be on the back of the goddamn car looking at street maps. So that's why I
MapQuest.
say, with Malcolm X, if somebody had killed Malcolm X at a young age, we wouldn't have had the great Malcolm X. So
Hmm.
that's why I say we got to protect our children, because we don't know how great they will be. We don't
Right.
know who they'll turn out to be. You see what I'm saying?
True.
So it's very important that we preserve life, protect life, but in the process of it, we got to do a better job between us as men and women to understand and have the maturity to say, I can walk away from this with a healthy attitude and a healthy mindset, and I
Hmm.
could deal with the disagreements on another level, or another day. But guess what? We have another day to go in and tackle that
Yes.
disagreement,
Yes.
and that's
But
important.
to tack on to that, that's good with the adults, but also from the from the child's perspective, that's also why it's very important for us to begin teaching emotional intelligence and emotional maturity
Mm,
to our children from an early age. Um, if art now, we understand now that it's a different age now, and these are things that we're just only now really starting to discuss publicly, and people are at least able to understand and have it at least be recognizable at a household level. But
mm,
for everyone now, currently, that has a child and will have children in the future, it's
mm,
on you to begin now starting to teach your children. First, teaching yourself, because if you don't have the concepts down, ain't no way in hell you're going to be able to teach it to them. So, first, educate yourself, work with and train yourself, develop emotional intelligence and emotional maturity, and then start teaching it to the children. Because the same way how you have children losing their lives because of adults that don't have an adequate level of emotional maturity, that also applies to the children too.
mm,
So, how many children, especially when we're talking about black children, we understand that it doesn't necessarily call for reaching adulthood, because we have children in some cases who get swept up now and get charged as adults for certain crimes in some cases.
mm, mm,
Um,
Yes.
you know, teach them emotional maturity, teach them how to be strategic in their thinking, how to be proactive instead of reactive. Don't wait
mm.
for stuff hitting the fan before you go ahead and you make moves. Do things so when it hits the fan, you know we're even near the area. You've been
Correct.
gone, been cleared it. Don't
Correct.
hang around with friends and people, and don't make friends with people who you know are always in trouble, who don't do the right thing, because you understand that nothing good is going to come out of that.
Correct.
Making those wise decisions early, but being able to express yourself so you don't get frustrated, you don't become stubborn and obstinate, you don't become disobedient or defiant, you don't become violent and develop tempers because you can't properly express yourself outside of swinging your fists or picking up objects and whatever. These are things that we have a lot of children right now in juvie for.
Real talk.
And you
Yeah.
Correct.
understand once you get caught up in that system, you know that that's a revolving door. You out today? Don't worry, you'll be back in a few more days. A lot of it's designed that way to begin with, but you teach our kids these skills, you're going to significantly begin chopping down that prison population. Because if you look at what a lot of these people are in prison for, we're talking about the adults now.
Mm,
Don't worry about the crime. Don't worry about the arson, the rape, the murder, the fraud, all the other things. Those are the crimes. But when you look at the bedrock of those, the foundations, how do we get here? Because you weren't born a murderer, you weren't born a rapist, you weren't born an arsonist. When you look at how we got here, you will typically find that a lot of those issues they had started young, and they were a result of low emotional maturity.
Hmm.
They didn't know how to handle certain things, and when they tried to do it their way, it was the wrong way, and got better, better, better at it. Became more advanced, more evolved. And next thing you know, you're standing in front of the judge in an orange
Hmm.
jumpsuit, shackled up, and you're getting
Yeah.
sent away for a significantly long time. In some cases, you're never going to get out again. You're not going to get out until they wheel your corpse out of there.
That's crazy.
So these are things that the crazy thing is the benefits of being able to get this early are huge. Most
Yeah.
people who are in significant places of leadership and authority typically they have these things mastered down because if you're the dickhead that no one can get along with, if you're the jackass that you always blow up on people, you can't have discussions, you can't take telling or whatever. Those are the
Yeah.
people that tend to end up going nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
The people who,
Let
on
me.
the other hand, have mastery of that, more often than not, they're where they want to be, whether that's at a high level in the corporate sense or you just in their personal lives. But these are skills that have tremendous benefits from early, and the
Yes.
absence of them has, on the flip side, tremendous consequences for them that can cost them their life, liberty, freedom, and other important opportunities that they need and would love to have in their lives.
Yes. Let
Yes,
me let me add
definitely.
this here real quick. I know, Aunt, you want to move on real quick, real quick. I
No, no, go
promise.
ahead. Go
I
ahead.
just want to shout out my grandmother. One more time. You bring me back to a place where I'm thinking about something she taught me when I was a small child, and I still use it to this day. Very simple quote. She must have
Mm-hmm.
started telling me this when I was like 4 years old. Controlled anger becomes strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Those four words have gotten me into some of the best spaces that I've ever been in and out of some of the worst predicaments that I've ever been in. Controlled anger becomes strategy. And while I thought that was just so fitting for this conversation about emotional maturity, and let me also just tack in there, for those of us that do not have emotional maturity or mastery of emotional maturity, I want to go back to something else that we discussed on this show before.
Mm-hmm.
Professional therapy. Okay. As a community, we do not get the help that we need. And these insecurities that we have, these inabilities to control our emotions that we have, this lack of discipline that we have, all of these things just keeps bubbling up until there's a disaster. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And if you do not have the skills, I'm putting it out there. Go sit your ass on somebody's couch and listen and learn. You know what I mean? Get it off your chest, get what you got to get out, but also be prepared to receive what this person is going to give you, because some of us, we have a very serious we have very serious mental deficiencies in our community that we do not
Mm-hmm.
talk. People
Correct.
walking around every day thinking they're perfectly fine, that are absolutely not fine at all. Very, very much mentally
Might want
deficient.
a second opinion on that.
Real talk, real talk.
Mm-hmm.
Very much mentally deficient. That has to change. But yeah, I'll land my plane now.
Yeah, so I wanted to go to very great point, very great point. Um,
Yeah,
I wanted to get back to Natasha's statement. She says, men sadly are often set up early to be emotionally stunted as boys for a number of various reasons. We raise boys and girls very differently and often think we have good intentions. And that's true to an extent. But 75%, and this was the video I was just about to play. 75% of women are actually more emotionally unstable than men. A lot of people don't
mm,
a lot of people
mm,
don't know that stat. They think that men are mostly emotionally unstable. And that's another we got to do a whole show about myths. we got
we
to do
do,
a whole we got
we
to do
do.
a
Yeah,
whole show about myths because I think what happens is through the myths, um, we we let a lot of things fly based on myths, and if it's based on myths and we let it fly, it becomes, like you say, culture. So we get
Right.
culturally adapted into our mind to think like that because
Mm,
we were culturally adapted to think that men wasn't crap and men didn't take care of their children because we look at proximity
uh,
experiences and anomaly situations
Mm-hmm.
And we just base that and say, oh, damn, there's a lot of guys out here that I know that ain't taking care of their children. But
Right.
statistically, because we have over 7 billion people in the world,
We are
black
the
men,
best.
black men rank number one
We are the best.
inside and outside the household. And it's very important for us to put the outside the household because they don't have to be inside your home to be good fathers. There's a lot of fathers that are outside the house that are phenomenal fathers to their children. And
Mm-hmm.
because we let these, you know, myths run, then they account for why a lot of brothers probably are 3 times more likely to commit suicide. Because if
Yeah.
I'm doing everything good and people feel like I'm not doing enough or I'm not doing it, then it comes a time where you feel like you only have one option, and that's something we don't want to happen. We want to try to get information out there. That's why we made manifestations, because we want to target the men. We want to uplift them, because the problem that I see is a lot of men don't have a lot of self-love and a lot of self-esteem. And that's something that we want to uplift on this program. We want you to have self-love and self-esteem. We already told you that if somebody talks about happy life, happy wife, happy life, that is a wrong thing. Because once we start changing the narrative to be happy house, happy spouse, then you understand that the happiness has to flow throughout the whole household. It doesn't land on a man's back. It's not everything. He has to provide for everybody and nobody's there for him. That creates a depression, and which leads to the avenue of possible suicide. So we want men to understand, like, build up themselves, be that quality guy out here. And if you're running across the ratchets, you know how to maneuver around them and find women of quality. You know how we talk about discipline on here. We talk about so many things that can help you in the long run. So
Yeah.
what I think a lot of times is people don't understand, because they really don't have either a platform to express themselves, a safe space, especially men. Men don't have as much safe spaces as provided as other women. And they don't think that there's people out here to rally behind them on how they feel. And once you get to find a spot or you hear a platform that is breathing life into you, now your outlook on life is a bit different. So we've heard great feedbacks on Manifestation and how it's providing that for the people. And this is why we said we know we can be very long-winded. So we're trying to, compact it up for you. So that way, you guys can really embrace this platform and get the gems in as impactful as possible within a shorter time than we was giving you before. But even though we was giving you a lot, I understand it was consumed a lot. But we want to make sure that we get the information to you so that way you can empower yourself, because that's what we're all about. It's all about empowering the men and the women out here so that way we can have an empowered community. It goes hand in hand. Um, so real quick, I wanted to show you guys this, the question of the day.
Okay.
Um, so we talked about the question of the day the other day, but I had just posted it um, on my timeline. So the question of the day was: a man is having, oh geez, I said sexy. A man is having sex. A man is having sex
I
with a
like sex.
woman. A
Like
man is having
Borat.
sex. A man is having sex with a woman. They live together. Everything is good, but every time she has errands to run, like grocery store, taking children to school, and appointments, she asks to use the car. He told her, "We are fucking, and you don't have to ask." He wants to know, was he wrong for saying that? And also, why do women ask when things should seem so obvious to do? Your thoughts?
Hmm.
So we talked about that. But
Yeah.
anybody want to chime in on the chat, you could definitely chime in and let us know what your thoughts is on that. But what you guys say?
They
I'll
didn't hear
let
the
you guys
conversation.
answer. Huh?
We talked about it, but they didn't hear the conversation. Go ahead. Go
Yeah, they
ahead.
didn't hear the conversation, so that's why I wanted to bring it up
Yeah.
tonight.
Well, I mean, what while we're waiting for them to chime in, because I know they're gonna have something to say in the chat. But while we're
Yes.
waiting, I'll just double down on my initial point. Um,
Mm.
I think women often ask questions that they should know the answer to, just out of kindness and respect. I
Yeah.
really do. You know, my girl is probably the sweetest person I've ever met in my life. And she asks stuff all the time. I mean, like, can I have some of your soda? I mean, you're my wife. Are you kidding me? Like, you know what I mean? Like, when she
Yeah.
does it, you know, and she's very sincere. You know what I mean? She's very
Yeah.
sincere. She does not ever want to violate my space. And I think it's because she's such a nice and kind person, and because she
Correct.
just loves and respects me so much. You know what I
Correct.
mean? Like the smallest thing, I'm telling you, it don't matter what it is. She always asks, "Is this okay? Is this okay?" Even if she's looking at clothes, you know, and you know, it's a little questionable. Is this okay? You know, before she buys anything. She is so respectful. So while she maybe shouldn't have to ask these things, give thanks that
Yeah.
she does. You know what I'm saying? Because that right, you know, you have the polar opposite of that type of female. I'm gonna just do what the hell I want and let the chips fall where they may. You know, if we gotta brawl about it later, then so be it. You know what I'm saying? It just
That's
is what it
definitely
is.
the better end of the extremes to be on. That's
I'm
we
gonna
can
just
live with
you me and you figure it out. Like, you know, so give thanks that she's that considerate of you, my G. You know, because that's a solid quality woman right there. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And at the end of the day, you know, you always let her know, reaffirm to her that she has the right to any and everything, you know, that's yours or whatever the case may be, because she's yours and you're hers, and that's the end of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just, you know, let reaffirm that to her. They love to hear that. They love that reassurance, even though they may already know. It's
Yeah.
just it give them an extra
that.
boost of confidence, and they'll let you know that you love them that much more, and that you
Correct.
feel them much more. You know what I'm saying? But it's a good thing that they're asking. You know what I mean? If we're being totally real, because the just having the level of respect, especially in 2023, where, you know, for some they expect to get along with men while not caring about what men think or like or require or whatever the case may be. I don't know how that works, right? But
Yeah.
that is the general mood, you know, among many women in 2023.
Yeah.
She's showing you by asking you that she's old school. You know, she cares, she respect what you say, like the scriptures. You
Yeah.
dig? And that's where we need to be. You know, at the end of
Correct.
the day, you know, y'all need to both have that respect for each other. And she's just showing you that when she asks you that. So, my dude, you got a winner. You know what I'm saying? It may seem a little off putting or a little strange, but you got you a winner, man. And also,
Correct.
let me put this out there too. It depends on the level of
Correct.
the relationship. You know what I'm saying? It also depends on the
Correct.
level of the relationship, right? If
Correct.
you're just getting with a dude and you know y'all ain't that solidified, it's different. You know what I'm
Correct.
saying? So I don't think when we were very clear on the level that they were at, I don't think so.
Correct.
But I mean, it seemed like they were living together at least. So I think they're at least pretty serious there. So I get
Yeah.
it. But you know, just accept that in stride, my dude.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
I say, like we was talking about it, and I said that, you got to understand from the perspective of, um,
Mm.
understand from this perspective that everybody, when they engage into a relationship or they engage into interaction with somebody, everybody comes with a past. Everybody's ran across different levels of people,
Yeah.
mentally, intellectually, financially.
Right.
So when you come across certain various peoples like that, especially women, they get different type of men. So maybe she ran across a guy who was telling her like, "Hey, I don't care if we fucking or whatever. Ask me before you take my stuff." You know what I'm saying? You have some men out there. um, I remember I was telling you guys like, hey, if I know how she drive,
Yeah.
I'll take you there, but you ain't gonna drive my whip because you drive reckless. Like you
Yeah.
want to tear my shit
Yep.
up. Like, if
Uh,
it's that level, but if I trust your driving, then take the keys. It's not a problem.
yeah.
If we're on that level, people don't understand, and this is why different people value sex differently. You know what I'm saying? We're
Right.
men of intentions. We're men who understands the value of sex. That's why we don't give our sex away so easy.
Yeah.
We have discipline.
Mhm.
If I'm engaging in sex with a woman, if I'm putting my life on the line with this woman, especially if I'm pretty sure you probably, having raw sex with her.
Yeah.
If I'm on that level of having sex with somebody raw, then
Mhm.
there's no need to ask me. what
Right.
is agreed is understood. You feel me? There's,
Right.
there's just that level of understood. Like you don't have to say anything. It's just understood. It's
It's there.
communicated through telepathy. You just know, like, nah, go ahead, take the keys. We'll do whatever you got to do. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's just the mere fact that she has respect for you enough to know that I'm not going to take your vehicle without you saying something. And also, you know, like I was telling the brother, um, you have to understand she don't know if you got obligations to go somewhere. What if you
Right.
had to go run somewhere and she
Ooh,
ran to go take the car and you had to be at an important meeting?
she's being considerate. That's
You
what
see
she's
what I'm
supposed
saying? Then
to.
you
Yeah.
would have been asked
Yeah.
out and probably would have been mad as hell. Like, why you ain't asked me? Because I got a meeting. Or I could
Real
have told
talk.
you to just drop
Uh,
me off while you out there and come
Mhm.
pick me back later. So this goes back into the realms of communication. This
Right.
goes back to emotional maturity of
yep.
understanding
She's
that
displaying
somebody
that by asking that question.
exactly
Yeah.
You know,
she's exuding that by doing that.
Yes.
uh, when I don't believe that it's possible, and if it is, I don't know what it calls for, but I'm convinced nobody is doing nearly enough where um, that could possibly be in jeopardy. But I don't believe that it's possible to have too much communication with your significant other. While
Correct.
it's definitely possible to have too little, I don't really know what too much communication would look like.
Correct.
Um, because communication does so much. Primarily, it serves to both strengthen bonds that you have with each other
Yeah.
and to really become tighter with each other. And it also serves to clear up confusions and misunderstandings, which means you're solving problems before they even occur. You're being proactive instead of reactive. You're not waiting for something to go wrong and then you're trying to figure out, well, what the hell happened? What's the disconnect? What's the conflict? What are you upset about? What am I upset about? Instead, it's
Right.
getting in front at the begin with, so you're minimizing any opportunity for anything to go wrong, and then you're also mitigating it in advance.
Correct.
That's how you get those relationships where you have people that the couple they know each other so well they're able to finish other sentences. They can just
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
share a glance. They could be at a dinner someplace. They can just look across the table at each other or just nudge
Yeah.
each other, and they know exactly what that means, and they're just in
Correct.
sync and intent.
Hmm.
Um, in a situation like that, I think that's a great opportunity to ask. Well, I noticed, you're always asking permission, whatever, or what's behind that? What's up with that? Or have you always been that kind of person? Or just not that you necessarily is trying to say that it's a problem, but just to understand them better so you get to know where they're coming from. And then you can find out some of those answers because some of those things might be useful to know. So maybe it's just a case of I'm being mindful, I'm being respectful, I just want to let you know that I respect you and try to reinforce that. It could be a case of,
Mm,
well, in previous relationships, I had issues where I wasn't doing this and it caused a lot of problems. So now I'm being proactive about it. It could even be something more extreme where I've dealt with people that were very, very harsh about this. And so now I'm just making sure that it can be a number of different reasons, but it's
Yeah.
opportunity to grow and understand your mate better.
Yeah.
And
mm,
again, to open up those lines of communication with one another.
correct.
Um,
See, go
and
ahead.
that's very important to do when you're dealing with another person who is coming from different circumstances. They have different life experience from you. They might be in different social circles, might even be a significant age difference present, but you're dealing with someone who is their own person, who comes with their own backgrounds. And anytime you're able to make the footing more equal, that's a net win. Everyone's gonna you benefit from being on the same page where you're able to establish these things and able to make better sense out of where people are coming from, so you can better
Correct.
meet needs, um, deal with and address wants as they arise, and get better into sync with each other.
Correct.
Real talk.
Correct. Correct.
Got quite a few responses in the chat.
Yes.
Um, yeah, we hold on, let me read some of them. I think she's being considerate and probably conditioned by previous relationships. Okay. Even if I
Hmm.
know I can take it and still ask, I still ask. Okay, that's what Natasha Gill's saying. Renaissance man says agreed. Then he says he disagrees. Women don't need to know everything. I ain't mad at you though. All right, all right. That's he want to be mysterious. He want to be a little mysterious with it. I ain't mad at him. You know what I'm saying? There's different ways to approach it, but at the end of the day, it ain't it ain't nothing to trip about. I will say that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
if
It's
you don't
give
necessarily
it.
tell her everything, you don't trip about her knowing
Yeah.
that.
It's really no wrong answer to it because it all depends on your mate. You feel me?
Right.
It's just basic communication with your mate. All it takes is one time to have that conversation, and the rest of the time you already know which direction they're gonna head in. So it's not something to hold the head down or get upset about. Just a miscommunication, or somebody just don't understand what level you on. With clarity, sometimes if you're not making it known, maybe, they living together, but maybe she might not think it's serious like that for her to, hold
Right.
something as valuable as your car. So, just different things and different levels of that. That all comes down with communication. So
This is
before we,
Also,
yeah, go ahead.
real quick, shout out to Natasha with what she said, 'cause I just peeped the response
Mm-hmm,
that she made, and it's very, very accurate. And it goes again to communication, where
mm-hmm.
she's up lost it. She said, oh yeah, she might not know or understand when he's talking about, we just hunch, we just knocking boots, whatever. She
Yeah,
might not
exactly.
know what comes along with that. So in
Correct.
his mind, he has the understanding of what just means. But and especially nowadays, we understand that that's a hot topic of conversation where there's a lot of people that think that it means certain things. You're supposed to have more access to other people. Some people think you're just entitled to get your willies wet or whatever, and that's the end of it. You just
Correct.
bump uglies and go home or just go separate ways. Some people that means you're all borderline married or whatever. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of gray area in between. So
Correct.
again, that's one of the things that you have to discuss. And also understand that a lot of times relationships, including marriages, tend to fail because there's different expectations that aren't being met. But the reason these
Correct.
expectations aren't being met, the reason a lot of these conflicts are happening is because the conversations that would have cleared all this stuff up, that would have made this plain, were never had. A
Correct.
lot of these
Correct.
people are married or been with people in relationship for years, and there's a whole bunch of serious questions that have never once been asked and answered. And when you find out the hard way, you realize,
Correct.
damn, we got married, and one of these big things for me, one of these big issues for me, is popping up right now. Well, if your bright self would have asked certain questions or tried to, get more in alignment before you went and made some of these significant steps,
yeah,
you either would have gotten this resolved and it wouldn't be an issue now, or you would have realized early when it was simple and painless to just cut and run, realize, hey, you know what, this ain't working out. Um, Thanks for the time we had, or let's just go our separate ways. Much love to you, all the best for you, whatever. No muss, no fuss.
yeah,
Now you
Correct.
got a messy divorce to go through. Now you got kids you got to worry about and visitation, or who knows what else is coming with
hmm
that.
Correct.
So
Correct.
listen,
Correct.
again, make sure you're on the same page. We just work it. That right there, he in that situation he might not have been aware of it, but that is a perfect opportunity for her to ask. Okay, so we just cool. I get that. So what does that mean to you? What's the line in the sand? What can we do? What does this status entitle me to, or what do I get with this? What is off limits? What are the boundaries? Right?
Mm,
right,
Because
yeah.
boundaries, contrary to the way they sound, boundaries are actually freedom.
Mm,
When you know where the boundaries are, when you know where the do's and don'ts are, you are free to move with confidence. No, you're not going to rustle any jimmies. You're not going to do anything that's untoward because you know how far to go and you know where you can just go ahead and operate in, as opposed to
Correct.
not knowing where the boundaries are, and you're either just reckless, bumping into every single one, crossing all the lines, or you're timid and tiptoeing around, walking on eggshells because you don't know if you're about to step on a landmine or not.
Correct.
Both
You
extremes are
know,
bad.
communication is king. It's emperor. It's shogun. It's rule. It's everything. It's supreme. Got
Correct.
to be on the same page.
Real talk.
Correct.
Listen, let me
I
tell
Yeah.
you,
Go ahead.
energy. Oh, shit. Okay, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna be done, man. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna be done. But I just wanted to, go back to the initial point. We the one thing in that statement that bothers me, if I was to, pinpoint something, is that he, instead of referencing the type of relationship they had, he
Hmm.
referenced that they were fucking.
Hmm.
That is a problem. You know what I'm saying? Because as Bob just said, as Bobby just said, as many other people will tell you, there've been plenty of women that I've been, rocking with in that capacity that could never drive my car. You understand what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like it don't that shouldn't be, from where I sit anyway.
Hmm.
That shouldn't be the defining factor. Oh, we smashing or whatever. I mean, and I'm speaking more broadly now because again, we're different people at this point. I'm a different person at this point. I date with intention. I date, deliberately. I'm working towards a goal in every situation. Speaking back to my most recent dating, I'm married now, but you understand, most people don't operate in that capacity when they're dating. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Most people is very fluid. They intentionally leave the lines blurred. Let's just keep it a buck. A lot of
Hmm.
we intentionally leave the lines blurred because we don't want her to necessarily think too much. You understand what I'm saying? But we don't want her to think too little. Let's keep it a buck. So, within the confines of that thought space, okay, yeah, you kind of got to qualify. For me, and the way that I rock with women, or whatever, yes, then that's fine. But the average guy probably doesn't have that level of seriousness with the average woman he's dealing with sexually. You know what I mean? So it may be a little more to discuss there. In other words, I can't just speak for me. That's
Hmm.
me. You know what I mean? But for a lot of other guys, if he's just smashing a chick, maybe she can't use his car. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And particularly, for an extended period of time. You know what I mean? Like you say, he
Hmm.
might have other things to do, whatever the case may be. But I think that in this case, yes, I still stand by my initial statement. But there needs to be a bit of qualifying, and to me, anyway, it shouldn't be based on sexual access as much as it is on the actual dimensions of the relationship, where
Agreed.
the relationship is, as opposed to, oh, we having sex.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah,
All
go
right.
See,
ahead.
the fun,
That's
the irony about that whole movement of no labels, because labels complicate things. It's actually the opposite, and
It
um,
is. It is.
and I, I, I don't believe, as cynical as I can be, I
Uh,
actually don't believe that most people are going that route because they're trying to be deceptive and duplicitous. I definitely believe you have a significant number of people who are trying to move that way.
yeah.
But I think in general, people who had bad experiences with relationships, they actually really and truly honestly believe themselves. They sat down, they've gone over in the head a few times. Maybe they
Yeah.
haven't,
Yeah.
but what they've got from those experiences is that, well, the issues came once we made it official, once we put a title on it, we're dating, we're engaged, whatever. So that's where the problem comes in. So I'm going to fix that by not putting a label on it. So that makes it easier. But again, going back to what I said before, the problem with that is now you've essentially activated the fog in your relationship. So
Yes.
you don't know what's where. You don't know if there's a toy car on the floor. You don't
Mm,
know if there's a log somewhere. You don't know if there's a fence. You
right.
don't know if there's broken glass. You're just stepping, moving. And honest to God, you're just hoping and praying that you don't make the wrong move or say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing because, again, you're like, well, we're just fucking. Of course, you can take the keys. And she's probably thinking, and the fact that she's even reaching out, the whole problem is probably in her experience. Well, anytime I've heard a dude say we just clapping buns, that means I couldn't do anything more than get my rear end wet and go home. So I'm confused what this means. Um, and it appears she ended up on the generous side of that arrangement as opposed to being on the short end of the stick. So now
Mm-hmm.
she's confused. Now I'm sure she's wondering, well, if that's the case, what else can we do? And then based on the way it sounds, if she keeps pulling at the string, it sounds to me that she's probably going to find out that well, there's a whole lot of things I can do. And at some
Mm,
point, the question becomes, well, if we're doing all this, if I can get your keys and drive, if you can spend the night at my
mm.
place, get a key
Go
to
on
your
now.
place,
Go ahead.
um, if we're not really seeing anybody else, I mean, we're keeping our options open, but we're not actually actively seeking anybody else out.
Uh-huh.
Sounds a whole lot like we dating, like we're boyfriend and girlfriend. No, no,
Yeah.
no. Let's not put us on it.
Hey,
It's confusing.
Correct.
The mental
real
gymnastics
talk.
you got to put yourself through. At this point, you may as well audition for the Olympics and see if you can get that team because you hitting the parallel bars, you doing the
Right.
rings, you got a whole floor routine. That you qualifying for the Olympics right now.
Yeah.
Mm,
All those gymnastics, all this hopping around and trying to figure it out, but that it doesn't do you any good. It's better to just shoot straight, be upfront. This is what I want. This is what I'm looking for, and
right.
this goes to the topic that I've spoken on plenty in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Abandoning the fear of the scarcity mindset. If you're
Mm-hmm.
dealing with this person and you like them, they seem good, but you're finding out, oh, there's some deal breakers that are popping up. Don't try and force the round peg into the square hole, or vice versa. Don't try and make this fit. If it don't fit,
Mm,
it don't fit.
that's it.
There's nothing wrong with saying, yeah, you know what? Everything was going good, but this is something that I can't budge on. You can maybe find out, okay, is this something that you can work with? You think that maybe you can adjust this? Or if you don't want to go that route, say, well, I just think we should just go separate ways and do that.
Yeah.
Yo, let me tell
Billions
you.
upon billions of people in the world. If it don't work out with this one, I guarantee there's somebody else somewhere around the corner that
Mm,
is going to fit better with.
Definitely.
But when you operate from that scarcity mindset, that causes you to put up with a whole bunch of nonsense that you know damn well you ain't got no business putting up with.
right.
And it's also blocking other people from coming into the situation because most of the time, a car isn't going to just linger at this one spot hoping for someone to leave. Eventually, they're going to pull off and find another spot. If you
Correct.
got the wrong car in your parking spot, you're cutting into your opportunities for the right person to get up in there, and opportunities aren't limitless. You don't
Baby.
have an abundance of opportunities, and you don't know
Correct.
when yours are going to run out. You might have one more coming your way. You might have
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
dozens more. You don't know. So
Correct.
the sooner you adopt that abundance mindset and start thinking, you know what, this doesn't fit. I'm not going to make it fit because what does fit will get here.
and
Definitely.
Make a world of
just
difference.
put the icing on the cake, man. You know what I'm saying? It sounds like even the next step beyond that, what you're alluding to is brothers, when we in that space, we need to lead and we can't be afraid, to pull a trigger and make it official.
Mm-hmm.
That at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? Like that's part of leadership. You know what I'm saying? That's part of emotional maturity.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in a space, you have to be self-aware enough to know that you're in that space and you have to lead within that space and make decisions. Don't
Correct.
sit on it. Don't bullshit about it. Don't chase the tail. Pull the trigger. Be
Yeah.
definitive. Be intentional. One
Yeah.
way or the other. Don't linger in limbo for too long. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? If that's what
Take
it is,
charge. Take
you know,
ownership.
right.
Yeah.
Take
Man,
ownership.
man up, man up. We
Man
will
up.
either succeed or fail on my go, but either way, I'm the one that's in the driver's seat. Dudes
That's
have to stop. Women have to do it as well too, but specifically because we're talking about men and leadership again. When I hear leadership, in my mind, I think men. I think manhood.
right. As you
That's
should.
that's how I operate. So as a man, so for me, if you're going to call yourself a man, if you're going to call yourself a leader, you can't be afraid to make the decisions. You're not going to get it right every single time. So put that out your
Right.
head. You
Yeah,
are going to make some decisions, and sometimes they're going to be the wrong decision.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's life. But the key is you learn from the failure. You figure out what went wrong, what can I do in the future to make sure that the next move is the best move, and you go from there because it's a learning experience. There's
correct,
not a single leader, good, bad, or in between, that has not failed or has not been able to accomplish what they were trying to accomplish.
Right.
correct.
But if
Right.
this is a competent person, this is a competent leader, the competency comes in from learning from that and making the negative a positive. So then you get to the point where you can adopt the saying, I don't lose. I either win or I learn.
Correct.
There it
So if
is.
you make the wrong choice, whether you make the wrong choice, okay, learn from it.
That's
Next time, guess what? I bet I don't mess up again, or at
exactly,
least I bet I mess up different. I might mess up again, but it's not gonna be the same exact thing I just did. So
correct.
eventually I'm gonna get my way out of this maze, one way or the other. No, but you
Absolutely.
Exactly,
can't be afraid. You gotta embrace those opportunities for growth. Don't be
exactly.
scared of growth.
Real
Don't
talk.
be
And
afraid. Embrace that.
always, always remember that every millionaire that you see failed several times before they got
Right.
to a millionaire.
That's right.
Maybe
So
even more than
always
that.
remember that
Yeah.
failure or not getting it right will eventually lead you to success if you are putting in the work to get to that level.
Mm-hmm.
Always remember that. You can have the knowledge, but it doesn't mean anything if you're not applying it the right way. All right. So I definitely want to wrap this up because we've been on here for a minute, but we gave y'all a great game. We gave
Hey,
y'all great advice. Nobody's talking about emotional maturity and on this
nobody.
level. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? So I definitely want to go over a couple of um, the emotional maturity charts real quick before we get into our queen check. And
yeah.
the first chart we have right here, I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but I'll read it off. Number one, starting on the top corner, is you don't hold grudges. Number two, you look beyond your first impressions. Three, you stop looking for perfection. Four, you know that your flaws better than anyone else.
Mm,
Five, you have a realistic perspective on love and relationships.
That
Six,
was.
six, you nurture your inner child. Seven, you live a value driven life.
Mm,
Eight, you're empathic to communication. Nine, you appreciate the little things in life. And 10, you know that happiness is a long life process, right?
can you
And
please can you please reread number 5 before you go to the next one?
okay, number
For
five is you have to have a realistic perspective on love and relationships. And I know why he said that, because a lot of y'all be delusional.
oh
Stop being
my God.
delusional and start living in reality.
Woo!
All right, so
I
this
know.
this next list that we have right here is you are aware of your feelings. You don't make assumptions. You are aware of your weaknesses and strengths. You are confident. You are constantly working towards improving yourself. You let go of grudges. You know how to maintain boundaries. You don't chase perfection. You know how to disconnect and focus on self-care. And you take
Mm,
responsibility for your own happiness.
Great
You're
game.
not putting
Great
that on
game.
somebody else. All right. I took the
nobody's job to make you happy. Mm,
I took the you guys can take there's plenty of emotional maturity tests out there. I took
Mm,
this one right before we came on the show, and it
okay.
says your EQ level is excellent. If you scored in this range, there's a slight caveat. However, you are either extremely high in emotional intelligence or extremely low. How is this possible? The results may reflect your high level of self knowledge or a lack of it, since you must be self aware to assess yourself accurately. For this reason, your self-awareness is the foundational competency um, of emotional intelligence. So
Mm.
I definitely had the opportunity to do that. That was pretty fun. So I advise everybody to go ahead and take your test. And then next time you guys come on here, you guys can always, type us in the inbox and let us know, or in the chat room and let us know how your test results came out. And remember, it's not about trying to get the perfect score. It's all about being honest with yourself, because you can lie on tests, you can cheat the test, but you're cheating yourself out of life. Because if you're
Right.
not improving the right way, then you're not going to get the person that you really want, or be around the company that you really want to be around. So make sure that you guys are doing it, and doing it correctly, to take a real great self-evaluation to see what areas you need to improve on, to make yourself a way better person than you was the day before. So tonight's queen check, queen check for tonight. So I had to think, what woman would really fit this situation that we're talking about tonight, because we're talking about emotional maturity. And
Mm.
I think this woman exudes that. I think she does
Okay.
exactly what we try to do here on Manversations, and
Mm-hmm.
that is trying to get men and women on the same accord. We're trying
Mm-hmm.
to straighten up the men and get rid of the dusties. We're trying to straighten up the women and get rid of the ratchets. And I
Mm.
said, who better to
I.
hold both sides accountable? And
Mm.
this person was compared to the equivalence of Kevin Samuels. And that
Yeah.
person is
Man, you took the thought right out of my head. Sister Shahrazad Ali. Man,
Sister
me and
Shahrazad
you.
Ali. Sister
Yes.
Shahrazad Ali definitely is an icon in our community. She is an American author of several books, including the paperback called The Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman, which is a very powerful book. If you
Yes.
haven't read that book, please go out there and go get the book. Support the sister. Been doing
Excellent.
incredible work for multiple years, over decades. The book
Mm-hmm.
was very controversial, and that's what we have to understand. Sometimes when they always talk about controversial books, sometimes books like that are really about truth, and truth can make you uncomfortable, and sometimes that uncomfortability will bring controversy. And that's
Yeah.
what happens with this book. It was so powerful with a lot of truth in it that a lot of people thought it was controversial because they got
Mm-hmm.
kind of offended by it. But a lot of people loved it because it was a real reality of stripping down everything and looking at the community, how brothers and sisters function on a daily basis, and stripping it down and getting to the bare facts of it. This book was bringing forth community forums, pickets, and heated arguments amongst Black people in many parts of the United States when it was published in 1989. Sister Shahrazad Ali is definitely our queen check of the night. We appreciate her. And it would be very dope, man, if we could get her on the show, because that
Yeah, I'm
is something that we're definitely going to work on doing. The
definitely.
sister is
That
super
would be
dope,
an
and we got to
honor,
get,
man.
yeah, we definitely got to get her on here. And I know you guys would definitely love for sister to come chop it up with us three brothers. That would be a definitely impactful show that
Heavy.
we will have for you guys. And we thank you guys for coming out tonight. We got this show shortened up for you tonight, so I hope you guys enjoy it. We didn't give you an extra 2 hours running into 12 o'clock, but we got everything packed in tonight and gave you a phenomenal topic. And shout out to Major for definitely bringing up this topic. When he saw it, I was like, yo, let's run with it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we don't talk about the emotional side of things. And I think just like the sister Natasha was saying, and I wasn't referring to the 75% as a slide to what she was saying. I said what she said was correct. I just was saying that when you said more boys, women more than boys, it was like a comparison. And when you do the comparison, you have to bring in the statistical data on that. But I do know what she's talking about on anomaly, and in the enclave of the Black society. Yes, we have to do a better job with having our young children, our young boys expressing emotional intelligence and um, emotional maturity. So that way when they grow up, they don't have to indulge in something that seems foreign, but something that will end up being more natural because it's always been embedded since they were younger. And we have to do a better job of it collectively, not solely putting it on the mother, not solely putting it on the father, but
Right.
collectively, like we talked about the village mentality. When I got beat in 3 different phases, I got that point across. But we need that village mentality to make sure that everybody's putting in the different angles of strengthening the children in our community. Because remember, we have to protect them and not uh, create an environment where people are preying on them. There's a lot of warfare going down. Um, that is aimed at our children, and we have to do a better job and strengthen ourselves to protect the targeting that's going on with our children. So we got to protect the babies. We love our children. We want to see them succeed. We want to see them have a happy and healthy life like the ones we're living ourselves. I think we owe them that right because our ancestors fought hard to get us in this predicament and this situation where we can be on Zoom talking to you and not in somebody's slave field picking up cotton or sleeping in the barn about to wake up 6 o'clock in the morning to go pick some cotton. So they
Right.
fought for the revolution of what we see today as what we see as progress. And we need to fight harder for them to make what the life we're living now, they should be living a better life than what we are. Every generation has to make the strides to make sure the generation after them is living better than they live. That's the whole point of progress and being better. Whenever you see the next generation prospering better than the previous one, then you're doing a good job by increasing and being better in the community. So I definitely would want to leave you guys with that. But I'll let you guys wrap up before we get out of here with y'all final thoughts for what you had to say before we get up out of here.
Man, I'm gonna be brief, but yo, I just gotta bring it back for the crown check of the night. Sister Shahrazad Ali is a big deal. Um, Whenever I come across sisters who ask, who should I listen to? Who should I read? Whatever the case may be, the first
Yeah,
name I say is Sister Shahrazad Ali. And right after
correct.
that will be Francis Chris Wilson. And that's only because it's usually with regards to dating and relationship advice that they ask these type of things. But those sisters are both spot on. But that sister right there is the truth. You know what I mean? She was out here in the trenches, on national television, discussing these things and, pushing accountability long before we came along, long before Kevin Samuels. This is back in the late 80s, and this sister brought the fire every time. She used to go hard on everybody, but she particularly went hard on the women. And this is something that I talk with a lot of sisters about when they say, y'all always going in so hard on the women or whatever the case may be. I always kind of throw it back. If you were doing your job holding other women accountable, we wouldn't have to. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So this sister exemplified that in every way because she
yeah,
understood, that women out here tooting their ass up and doing sexualized dances every time there's a camera in their face is a bad look. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? That's the long and short of it. We can sit up here and pretend that we don't know what's wrong with that all we like. There's something very wrong with that. And she wasn't, she didn't hold back when she was criticizing the brothers either. You know,
mm,
we all have our flaws and we all need to take accountability for them and correct them. Period.
correct,
The no excuses. No, I have a hashtag, no coddling, no excuses. And
correct,
that's for. And that sister was very much about that. No coddling, no excuses. Let's be emotionally mature in the way that we deal with each other. Let's be intentional and deliberate about our intentions with each other. Let's respect each other. Let's love each other. Let's do some nation building with one another
Yeah.
as a group. Be one.
excellent,
Well,
excellent point. Yeah, like I want to say like Mila Renee, you could say that's like a younger version of Sister Shahrazad Ali.
Real talk.
Our Queen Mila be doing her thing.
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, we definitely gonna get Mila to be chopping it up on here one night. We're gonna
Definitely.
definitely add her in. and
We
have
talked
y'all.
about it. Yes, definitely.
Yes,
We got to do that.
definitely. All right, Bobby, go ahead, wrap it up for us. Bring it home, Bobby.
Um, so real quick, I was gonna mention initially when it was discussed, but I like the flow of where it was going. I didn't want to take away from that, and I
Mhm.
figured I'd just tuck it in my pocket and bring it out towards the end.
Yeah.
So, because typically when you have conversations related to this, unfortunately, um, as the saying goes, people on the high end of the spectrum discuss ideas. People on the middle level of the spectrum tend to discuss events, and people at the low end of the spectrum tend to discuss people. So
Mhm.
typically, when you have conversations like this, usually, unfortunately, depending on the circles you're in, if you're on the lower end of the spectrum, it tends to devolve into gender warring, and
Mhm.
then questions such as, well, women are more emotionally intelligent than men. That's not true. Women are not. And the whole back and forth becomes a pissing contest to see who's got the longest stream, who's is more yellow, who can do tricks in the air with all kind of stupid nonsense and garbage that does nothing to improve anything whatsoever. Moves us further from the goal as opposed to getting us closer.
Yeah.
But according to the experts, this is what I was able to discover. So
Mhm.
there's this psychologist by the name of Dr. Daniel Coleman, I believe it is. I'm actually positive about his name.
Mhm.
Um, no, it is Dr. Daniel Coleman. He's been in the mental health game for quite some time. In 1995, he actually penned a book titled Emotional Intelligence, breaking down into the concept behind it. I know he's been a contributor to the New York Times
Mhm.
um, throughout his duration in the mental health field, and he actually answered some questions about a decade or so ago regarding mental health, or
Mhm.
specifically emotional intelligence. And towards the end of his interview, he answered several different questions. Towards the end of his interview, he did get asked the magic question about
Mhm.
which gender has higher emotional intelligence. And he responded. He said, "Well, typically I get asked that question, which means it wasn't anything new to him." So he
Mhm.
usually gets it asked a different way, which is, are women more emotionally intelligent than men? Because
Mhm.
according to the lore and the mythology, women are more emotionally
Mhm.
intelligent than men. And then he answered by saying, you have to remember that emotional intelligence, it's not one particular thing, it's a range of abilities. It's self awareness, emotional self management, empathy, and social skills. And he said, women tend to be better than men on average at empathy, particularly emotional empathy, which is like
Mhm.
sensing in the moment how the other person is feeling, and also at social skills and
Mhm.
at keeping things feeling good between people in a group. So they tend to be better at being that gel, this friction, whatever. They tend to be, better at kind of, keeping everyone else in harmony with each other. Men, on the other hand, according to him, we tend to be better on average at self confidence, particularly in groups, and in managing distressing emotions.
Mhm.
So you talk about women being emotional and giving into the emotions. Well, according to science, that's actually not intent. That's based on research, based off of observation. That tends to be a thing. Do you have some women who are great at managing their emotions? Absolutely. Some of them are better than men on average. But when you look at the collective, what is the norm for the group? Women tend to not be horrible, but not as good as men in that regard. And so the debate in the conversation in the comments earlier was about whether or not this is just whether or not this is how men or boys are taught, or if it's just better at placement or giving them a role and them operating in that.
Correct.
But he went on further to say what's interesting though is if you look at leaders who are in the top 10%, there's no difference between the men and the woman in any of those variables. In other words, you have a whole human being. And that's what
Mhm.
the importance about that is. If we're going to ask that question, are women more emotionally intelligent than men, or are men more emotionally intelligent than women? The answer, I would say, is it doesn't matter. We
Mhm.
both need to become the most emotional matured. We need to be able to make sure we have all those areas unlocked and become a whole human being.
Mhm.
If you're great at empathy and you're great at social skills, you need to get great at self confidence and being able to assert yourself. You need to be great at expressing yourself. You need to be great at managing your emotions, and vice versa. There should not be any holes in your game, and if there are, you need to take the time and the effort to be real with yourself. Get a second, third, fourth, fifth, 18th, get a 50th opinion if necessary. But get real, honest feedback from others, both people you
Mm,
know and and from complete strangers, because sometimes people close to you are going to tell you what you want to hear. Sometimes it's going to be a person who's a perfect stranger who's going to give it to you raw, uncut, unfiltered because they don't know you to have that affinity for you and be soft with you like that. But when you
mm,
hear something that's consistently being said, if it's something that you don't like, don't jump to the offense. Manage your emotions. Hear what's being said and say, you know what? I hear a number of people saying this. Maybe this is a sign that this is a weak point I need to zero in on. I need to tweak this. I need to get stronger and better at this.
Mm,
And
mm.
then actually put in the work. So that's how we should be looking. That's the lens, the framework that we need to have about this. It's not about a pissing contest. I'm more mature than you know. I'm catching up. Put
That
a
is
hole in that in the head of that.
mhm.
Make sure that you're doing all you can to become a whole, complete person.
mm,
And make sure you're helping those around you to do the same thing. So don't just be content to get the goods for yourself. Share that. Pass it around. We need more whole people. We have too many fractions moving around and they just cutting people there with their jagged edges. No, we need to become round. No squares in the circle.
Mm, I
right.
love it. And you hit on something very key in that response that you gave, very eloquently put, Bobby Drake. We got a whole other show that we need to do about that. Balance.
Mm,
That response that you gave was basically, the a master class on balance and what it looks
mm,
like. Yeah, that
right.
that was
Definitely. We appreciate everybody for coming out tonight. As you know, you guys, we don't never tell you what we're gonna talk about next week, but we always got something great for you guys. Remember
you
to tell a friend to tell a friend. This is a
Yeah.
platform that is dope. If you feel like you have any dusty dudes that need to elevate, bring them over here.
Center,
And yeah, send
center.
them because a lot of dusty dudes feel like they got ego. So we want them to jump on here and rustle up their little
Mhm.
shirts a little bit and tuck them up. We don't mind doing that for y'all. So just bring them over here. We'll do the rest. Uh, Also, if you have any ratchet women that's on here, just send them over here so they can understand that there is a platform out here to groom them and make them understand that their ratchetness is a phase that is going to phase out and leave them somewhere that they don't want to be left. And so basically, this platform is to elevate both sides of the scale,
Yeah,
on the men's side and the women's side. That's what we do. It's just our job as a community and community leaders to do so. So we love what you guys are bringing to the table as far as telling everybody and sharing this information. We love the feedback that we're getting. We also have Dear Men that we will do next week. We'll add that in. We were supposed to uh, continue that from the first episode we told you guys about, but we implied it back in. So, Dear Men is a place where you can send in your emails. Send in your emails about anything you want us to discuss, any issues or situations that you had, just like the question of the day that came in directly off of the email. Send it to us so we could post it here anonymously, and then you could get your feedback and understand which direction or way you're supposed to choose. So their men, the email for that is manversations2020, just like the platform at gmail.com. So send us all your emails or whatever you have on your chest, any situations. Just send it to us. We'll dissect it and give you the best answer possible for whatever you're going through. With that being said, we'll see you guys next week. Make sure y'all be safe. Also, it's been a crazy week. Next week will be a very crazy week. Is next week Easter, right? It's Easter Sunday.
I'm such a heathen. I couldn't.
Um,
I think it might be Easter Sunday.
It is.
S-
Probably so.
yeah, so make
They
sure
talking
that
about it like it.
make sure you guys are safe out there. Keep the family safe because every time we have holidays, we have a bunch of crazy people with their driving skills, driving reckless. So we want to make sure you guys make it here with us after Easter Sunday evening and come chop it up with us. as we have a phenomenal, phenomenal show for you guys tonight. So with that being said, we appreciate y'all and we'll see you guys next week. Peace
Yeah.
out.
Shout out to the audience, yo. Y'all great.
Love.
Definitely.
Yay.
On the album, we do things like songs that are a little, what we call sexy. You can see from the title, it's more of a love album.